What's up there, Bradley? How's your 2020?
It's been interesting, to say the least. Thanks for having me on, though, boys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. This is
you bet.
Yeah, we've been trying to line this up for a while, but
yeah,
yeah,
we have.
It's been like since like the first episode, we're like, can we? Oh no, it didn't work out.
Yeah, for sure. That's okay though. We're here
town
now
and stuff, but yeah, without our co-host Keelan Meston, he's out racing Supercross today. I think he actually had a good moto. He had a third. He got a third in one moto.
Ooh.
I think he went like 3-5 for fifth overall, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Like you go 3-5, you want something better than fifth, but
yeah. Track looked not too bad.
Yeah, it looked fun. It looked kind of mellow.
Yeah. Easy, short.
I didn't even look at it today, honestly.
No.
It's like, I guess that's kind of how you want to go for the first round, right? Like, you don't want anyone to be getting hurt. But apparently there was all kinds of takeouts and crashes and stuff. Like, apparently Dylan Wright was like crashing in the whoops, taking people out and stuff like that. But I don't know. I didn't watch it or anything. That's what the tweets say.
Yeah, all I heard was Tyler messed up his knee, so that's kind of where my focus was. But
surgery-wise, or
doesn't sound like it. But obviously he's out now. But
so I guess we should start by introducing you. Like Brad is trains for. I guess you can take it away.
Yeah, I run a company, own a company called Migration Unlimited. So I train athletes of all sort of from all walks of life, but we've sort of focused predominantly in motocross and handlebar sports and extreme sports, so skiing and stuff like that. We're kind of getting more into rodeo and stuff now, and anything that can really hurt you, we train you for.
Cool. So you train. So myself, Tyler Medallia, Tanner Ward. You've worked with people like Sean and Keelan in the past.
Yeah, in the previous years, yeah. There's a wide range of people that we've worked with over the past 3 years now. We've been in business for just over 3 years, which is crazy.
It seems longer.
It does seem longer, but at the same time, I'm also like, man, where did the last 3 years, like, where'd the time go? Because it feels like I just started this, 3 or 4 days ago. But at the same time, it's like, the grind of a season wears you down, and then you go like, man, it's been a long 3 years. So it's just perspective, but yeah, we've had a lot of really, really awesome people come in and out of the program, and pretty fortunate to be where we're at right now.
Yeah. So and also you were a professional cyclist back in your prime.
Yeah, back in the day, in another lifetime, racing the road and on mountain bikes for how long did I race for? Better part of 10 years anyway, just over a decade. But obviously it's a little bit different than motocross. We're not hitting the big jumps, and there's no motors except for ourselves. So
similar training aspects, though. Right?
Yeah, that's kind of where the interest started. Was
anyway.
Coming from a road background, and it's all to do with your body and how you prepare for an event or a big goal, and especially if you're riding in a sport as grueling as that. It's pretty excessively dedicated to training and like what you're putting in and out of your body and how you're trying to get the most out of and be the most efficient rider you can be. So with motocross, it sort of it made sense to be like, this is a sport where I'm getting the gears here. I gotta turn this up. It's a sport where I saw a potential for improvement for a lot of people in terms of their training programs and what I saw that could benefit them, just based on my experience in my own career, and then as well as obviously with schooling and the stuff you learn in physiology and with the body. And yeah, it just sort of rolled from there. It was really, there's no like set plan in place. It just kind of happened.
So how did you get to know like the guys in moto? So it's obviously you trained with Todd at PerformX back in the day.
Yeah, I did a year with Todd at PerformX. I met actually how I got my full on start with moto is I met Sean Moffenbauer. He actually came to Regina, where I was going to university at the time, to do a VO2 max test that we were running in the lab. And so Todd, who was like obviously our mutual friend, was like, hey, I got this rider who's this up-and-coming kid who's from like kind of like your neck of woods in Swift Current. I think it'd be a good fit for him for you guys to meet up, and maybe you could do some testing with him. So we did a VO2 max, and I met him and hit it off pretty well with him. And then we started training. I was in Arizona for most of my winters on the road and mountain biking for just off-season training, and decided to move to California the following year and see what it was like to work with PerformX, and stayed in the big house there with all those guys and down in Temecula, and had an amazing experience there and just met so many cool people. And although I was in a very different sport at the time, it's the camaraderie really just meshed with my mental state of what I wanted to accomplish in life after racing. And it was honestly like I never really fit in with the road industry. I was sort of a bit of a meathead, I guess, and a kind of a like an enforcer role. Wasn't really like a super talent in the road racing world, so I was just kind of like this goon drifting around and was like, motocross people are more my style of like personality that I want to hang out with and people that I jive with, and it was just a happier place for me to train, even though I wasn't riding dirt bikes at the time. So that's how I got my start with motocross. I just met those guys down there and had a really good experience and a lot of good memories down there.
Was that your first exposure into motocross, or did you watch it before going anywhere?
Yeah, so my cousin Warren was pretty heavily involved with Todd and with Sean, and they I knew, we kind of all knew each other before just because we were in the same kind of demographic, and you're still in the racing community, so you kind of keep tabs on everything that's going on, especially in small town Saskatchewan. You know of any name who's gotten out of the bubble of Swift Current or Regina or whatever that's sort of branched out on an international stage. So we knew who each other were, but my cousin Warren was heavily involved with moto, and he's always raced and ridden lots, and he was a big advocate for what I was trying to do on the road scene and on the mountain bike side. And it just sort of, like I said, it just all flowed together. It wasn't really like we said, like, we're going to try this. It was just like it just happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool.
What's probably the biggest thing that you find you can help motocross racers with in terms of what you're doing training-wise for them?
Yeah, so what I've learned with moto, although I never grew up being a dirt bike racer, is that I see there's obviously a personality type that are going to be attracted to that type of sport. Road is obviously very different because it's a totally different sport, but it's any extreme sport or any sport that you're pushing your body to that physical limit, you're going to have a specific type of mindset in an athlete or in a person.
Right.
So through the board and all that, it was just like these people, it makes sense why these people are doing this. And I fit into this group. Here's what I learned in my career and what I've learned seeing just from an outside perspective, not being a motocross racer, but seeing what I see in the sport that I do and what you're doing in your training and how we kind of coexist and help each other. That's how I got the idea to start Migration, was because I saw some of these holes in their training and preparation that we do on the road side of things, and then vice versa. And some of the things I was not doing, like, for example, in the gym, I learned from Todd and I learned from a lot of the motocross guys that helped my career in terms of like just being stronger and the mental preparation behind the sport you're getting into. You just saw like a good cohesive like mesh that just worked for both sides. At least I thought, anyway.
So what was like the biggest, or one of the biggest holes you saw from the cycling world coming into the motocross world?
It was mostly the dedication and the like precision behind the consistency of the training. It was like, you can go ride and get fit, and you can, like, there's 10 different ways to skin a cat, but the biggest thing that I saw, the biggest hole in some of the programs that I saw, was there's no consistency and no real communication with, like, I guess it comes down to the communication with the trainer and the athletes, and then being calculated in your approach to building a program for a specific goal. There's always just like, we're going to go racing. Like, that's like the overall scope. It's like, well, if you want to go racing, like, what do you want to accomplish? You want to just be a dirt bike racer, or you want to just be a road racer, or like a hockey player, or do you want to like perform at this event?
Yeah.
So that was sort of the hole that I saw. You weed people out obviously with that by being like, do you want to do this like for real, or do you want to just do this because it's an image thing?
Well, I agree with your like whole calculated approach there, like bringing that whole calculated approach in.
Yeah, accountability is the word I was searching for.
The old school method was just, you work out and grind all day long, then you ride your motos, you burn 3 tanks of gas, then you go back to the gym, grind. But that calculated method you talked about has changed the game a bit in our sport, I think.
And then there's a lot that I learned in terms of like with bike setup. I'm still continuous to learn with bike setup and suspension settings, and different gear ratios and different, like, there's so much involved with racing a dirt bike, and even on the mountain bike side of things, and now on the road side of things, there's like little tweaks you make on your machine that are pretty overlooked, and that I overlooked too when I first started this company, that I had no idea of. Right, I learned that as I was hanging out with Sean and hanging out with Keelan and hanging out with all the guys that I train now. It's like, man, I was so naive on like what really makes the full motocross athlete. I was just like, oh, you got to get in really good shape, like, duh.
Yeah, that'll get you somewhere.
It'll get you somewhere, but like, there's a lot going on in this sport. That's like, in road, it was like, grease your chain and like make sure your tires have air, and make your body go through astonishing pain, and you'll probably be successful. Or it's like it's a little bit different in motocross.
Yeah, you can be as fit as you want, but it doesn't matter if you don't know how to ride
if
the
bike. If the bike isn't comfortable for it, totally.
Yeah. Was there anything that the motocross world brought to you training wise? Like, you went down with Todd there and stuff.
Yep.
Like, how much motocross brought to you in the training aspect?
A lot of it had to do with mental prep. So for example, if we're racing criteriums in road racing, or you're on the start line of a really important, like a big World Cup race, or like on an international stage where you're pretty nervous, and it's like, although you're not worried about like crashing right away, you're trying to think about it, the risk involved with racing on the road. We're not wearing like pads or really that thick of helmets or anything. We're pretty naked out there.
Yeah.
And then you see in motocross, the start of a motocross race, especially on 450s, is fucking insane. You're like, how do you prepare for this mentally? Like to go, and then you look at a criterium race or a mountain bike race, it's like same kind of deal. Full sprint into the corner, and you're all trying to fit in this one little turn.
Yeah.
It's like only one bike can fit. It's like, how do you prepare emotionally for this amount of stress? So I learned a lot about the ins and outs of the mind game in terms of the psychology of like preparing for a goal through motocross that I never really learned in road.
Cool.
Which was really, really interesting. It still isn't very interesting. The more people I train, the more riders I interact with, the more I learn with that.
Yeah, totally. The mental side is like, yeah, if you can do
it's everything.
You can do all the motos you want. You can be absolutely killing it coming into the season, and then you come in and you just don't perform at a race. Yep. And that's all mental, right? It's 100% mental.
For sure it is.
Yeah.
And you have to have that. Like, some of it's genetic for sure, and most of the stuff that we tell riders, like, if you have talent coming in, we've got like a base point to start with. There's no talent, like, it's tough. Like, it's you can be as dedicated as you want. You have to have that like ability to turn it on when you need to turn it on.
Yeah.
And some people have it and some people don't. But you can still train that. So it's cool to work with riders that are like, if they don't have a high confidence level, and you see like that progression. That's why we do what we do. It's like, man, you can see these riders, especially if they're like a younger kid coming up and they're like, they're shy or they're kind of passive, and then they get on the start line, you're like, you're just a killer. Like, man, that is wild how like two different worlds are like just smashing in together in the start line of a race. Yeah. That's so cool to me.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned from being on your program is like, before I used to just like anytime I got on the road bike or the spin bike or whatever, I was just like wide open all the time, like wide open.
Yeah, you're
for 30
that
minutes.
kind of guy.
That's my personality, right? I just wide open. But as soon as I got on your program, I noticed big fitness gains in doing the base miles, doing the longer rides, lower intensity, just doing that all winter, and then ramping it up more towards the race season.
Yep. And that's the thing, is like, that's how if you want longevity in this game, or any sport for that matter, I don't care if that's like tennis or golf or whatever it is, you have to have consistency and you have to have a foundation in place that's going to work for you. You can't just go, I'm going to ride, or I'm going to compete at this level and go max all the time. You're gonna spike, you're gonna plateau, and you're gonna crash really hard.
Yeah.
You see that in young athletes all the time, and I was one of them. I was like, well, the best way to get faster if I suck is just train my balls off and just keep going. Well, eventually you're like, why am I so tired and I feel so weird all the time? And I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
Because your body isn't recovering. So
it's funny how there's that deceiving game. You see people with that success from grinding as hard as they can
totally.
And stuff, right?
And we're taught that, right, from a young age.
And everybody wants to chase that, but like you said, it's not sustainable for long periods of time. Well, depending on your sport and stuff.
Again,
like
and
that,
genetics play a big part of it. Like, some people can do that and get away with it when they're young, especially. But yeah, in the long run, when everyone's, or if you turn professional, and everyone's really highly competitive, and everyone's like at the same, got the same mindset going in. They're all killers. They're all wanting to win. It's going to be the little things that are going to separate the big dogs from the little ones in the end. And then the longevity game, like I said, like, you can't win a championship in one race, but you can sure as hell lose it.
Yep.
So you have to be consistent for 10, 12 rounds, at least in the States, or in the world of any sport. Yeah. If it's not just a one-off event, if it's not the Olympics, I mean, it's you have a full calendar to perform.
Yeah, and
you have to have a foundation for that to be successful.
Yeah, and that can go both ways too. I found that like you can do too much of that, just like low end consistency stuff, but it's like if you don't get enough high end stuff, it's like these kids, like all the younger kids, and they'll blow you away on the first 2-3 laps.
Yep.
So you need to like really.
They're all full of piss vinegar because
right?
they're young and they're like just ready to jump at the bit, but then you get the old man strength, like as we talked about kicking in. And it's like experience also plays a big part of that. You don't know until you know,
right.
And then you get as the body gets used to the training load. It's like building. I always talk about this. I'm sure you've heard this in the camps that we run. It's like building a house or building a pyramid. Well, how big do you want to build this thing? If you want to build it really high, you need to have a much bigger base.
Yeah.
Because if you just build like a pyramid upside down, it's going to tip over really easy. So if you have a huge foundation and a huge base and a huge amount of, we call it like aerobic capacity, then you're able to build an anaerobic threshold on top of that because you have this base established over years and years and years of just consistently grinding away. But you can't just go hard all the time. Like it just doesn't work. So it's very methodical and it's very boring sometimes, especially in the off season. But the riders, especially the younger guys who can see through that bullshit of being like, okay, I just want to go ride and like have fun and go max speed all the time, which is because it's fun. If you can teach them to that's not the way to be successful in the long term. If they can see that long 10-year goal, then you can play with something there. Like you can actually see a future for this athlete. And I hate to say it, but there's fewer and fewer of those coming around now because everyone wants that instant gratification, and it just doesn't exist in our worlds.
In any professional world, you don't have instant.
No, it doesn't have to be sport. It could be in business or like anything. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
You can't go, I want to train really hard for like 2 months and expect to be a world champion. Like that does not happen.
Yeah. Well, you can have small wins of instant gratification.
Oh, for sure.
You're not going to have that overall, championship goal.
Yeah.
You're not
that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is the championship caliber athlete, they're very, very rare.
Yeah.
Because to see 10 years down into the future, like you still want to go through the failure after failure after failure, which is going to happen in any walk of life you're in. If you want to be successful, you're gonna suck sometimes. And it's going to be shitty. It's going to be painful. There's going to be a lot of sacrifice. You're going to be like, I don't want to do this anymore. But to have those people that just continue to persist and just like not give up, you see this like the training programs that are in place that are like have that solid foundation, and they can come off a big injury like a broken leg or a broken arm and miss 3 or 4 months and come back and not really miss that much.
Yeah,
that's what you want out of like a quality athlete, in my opinion. That's my goal, is to build an athlete that's bomb-proof. So when these things happen, or you have a setback, because they're going to happen, especially in motocross, you can still recover from that and not lose sight of the end goal. Yeah. And then, like you said, find little wins along the way that you can build off of.
Yeah, and you can it's hard to really think about it like in the moment.
Yeah.
But like in the long run, you think about like your anaerobic base you're building it wider and wider every year. Right?
Every year, yeah.
So
it's again, and every year as you age, also, like you just get physically more mature. Especially like if you have these kids that are like 14, 15, 16 coming into the sport, and they're like I said, they're all full of piss and get vinegar for 2 rounds, and then they kind of crash. Well, I mean, you got to go through puberty, and you have to like mature as an adult and have all that hormone fluctuation.
Yeah.
Then as you become, a man or a woman, and you start to like level out, then you can start to build an actual foundation and to have proper movements in place. That's another really big thing. If you don't have the proper movements in place for your specific sport, you're not going to develop proper neural pathways for that specific type of movement. So if we're developing an athlete from a young age, say they want to be really good at gymnastics. See, they do this in China all the time, where they like literally put you in like it's not right, but they put you in like a school for like your genetic like typing.
Yeah.
Which is fucking crazy, but it's like this person is good at this genetically, but they're not allowed to play other sports. I'm not an advocate for that. I'd like you to play a bunch of sports, so that when you do get into a sport that you find like this is what I love, this is really what I want to do, you have all these other different neural pathways that have been created and allow you to develop in a way that is going to help you prevent injury and also going to help you allow you to know what you're good at. Yeah. If you're just forced to do one thing, it's not going to help you later on in that sport, because you're going to end up hating it.
Yeah, and that even applies to like moto itself.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is like all these people are like, do this. Like
in the moto world, like me and Dom were talking about. We had like a pretty in-depth conversation last night. Like, so like what do we got to do to get to the next level?
Yep.
It's like I think you got to ride the most diverse. You got to ride the different stuff as you can. Like, don't just stay in Calgary and ride the main track all the time. You got to ride as much different shit as you can.
Yeah.
That's what's going to help you adapt to different, like learn how to adapt to different situations.
And that's the thing is, if you can't adapt, you're talking about all the mudders this year, like all the mud races. Like
that's what I was thinking.
You can't adapt to the crazy change in climate and stuff. You're not going to do well. Look at a perfect example of this is Tyler Medaglia.
Yeah.
Guy rides every kind of bike there is. And you see him, he's always there. He's always like up front. Unless something like a motor malfunction, he has like catastrophic, like something happens, he crashes. Yeah. Like you can pretty much guarantee that he'll figure it out on the day, and he'll just get his mind in this zone where he has to be, because he's done all these other different things.
Totally. Yeah.
That's the kind of athlete you want to have in terms of like developing a future like 10-year plan.
Yeah.
You want to be diverse. You want to be able to like react to things as they come.
Well, and that's like you said, you got to be able to take on those other sports. Like you said, they're going to teach you things like a different reaction time or a different fast twitch muscle.
The more the better, especially when you're younger, in my opinion.
Yeah, balance is a huge one, right? All those sports are teaching you different balance and everything like that. And you can only strengthen you on the bike. It's not going to hurt you unless you're hurting yourself doing those other sports.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're like, riding bulls or something stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough though in moto because you don't want to like go ride in the mud because you're gonna fuck your bike up and
that's the other thing. Like it's like I come from a sport where, like I said, you grease your chain, pump up your tires, and give it to the mechanic and say, hey, there's some dirt on my bike. Like, wash this sucker off.
Yeah.
Moto, it's like that was the other thing when I was down at those camps the first year, especially when I met Sean. I couldn't believe the amount of hours that went into maintaining the bike. I'm like, dude, can we hang out? Like, what are you doing? He's like, I gotta change tires. I gotta change the chain. I gotta change oil. I gotta change filters. I'm like, what?
That's basics.
I just wiped my chain off. Yeah. Good to go for 200K tomorrow. Let's go.
Well, that's why we look at soccer players, and it's like, oh, you got a pair of shoes that last you all year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even, right?
Totally naive and all this stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, like it's a totally different world.
Especially as a privateer or an amateur, right? It's like you got to do this all on your own.
Yeah,
that's why it's so cool to see. Like it is a shit ton of work, especially in motocross.
Yeah, it's easy to get burnt out of it too.
Totally,
like especially like.
Well, I've seen you guys all. I'm like, man, you guys like I don't not envy you having to go wash your bike after a moto.
Yeah, and it's like. Even this summer, like, right, we're packing shit up, moving, unpacking shit, setting up the tent, setting up the banners. Mud race. Let's wash the bike for fucking 4 days.
We probably put, like 3 tanks into one.
Take everything apart, every bolt, clean it all off.
Full of mud. Like, it
doesn't
was
happen
bad.
on the road.
Yeah, that hopefully next year there's none of these mud races, or even just one. I can deal with 1 or 2, just not 3 in a row. 3 in a row is a little draining.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's all fascinating to me, and it's just like it's such a cool sport. It's the ultimate mix of like man and machine, and just like there's so much stuff happening that you would never know. It's like that in every sport, I assume, but like there's so much going on that I learned even in the last 2 years, like being on in the rigs and stuff, and what goes on in between motos. I'm like, this is the coolest sport ever. Yeah. Like, this is what I want to be a part of. This is like, and you can see that potential and like how it's going to progress in the next like 10 years even with technology. It's like, man, this is a pretty cool sport.
Well, I was even looking at that new Honda and 3 buttons on the one side, 2 on the these things got so much technology in them now, and they're only going to get more and more.
Yeah, there'll be no motors here pretty soon.
Yeah,
sounds like.
You're right, eh?
Yeah, that prototype Honda electric bike looks pretty fucking sick.
What are you gonna do when there's no sound on the bikes?
Oh, that'd be crazy. You'll be like,
I don't think they have. They just hear the chain slap. That's all you hear.
Yeah, and you'll be like, even it's like you can yell at people on the track and you can like kind of barely hear them, but you'll have like a full on conversation and you're going like passing someone. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you in my get out of the way? I'm a lapper.
It's like watching the playoffs and stuff right now in the NBA or NHL. Like you can hear all the chirping because there's no fans.
No fans. Yeah.
You can just hear everything that's going on, and there's a lot. Like obviously, there's a lot of animosity.
That'll be cool.
When I was racing, I was screaming at people.
Oh yeah.
That'll be one thing that's cool though, when there's all electric, you would really be able to feel the fans, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming they're gonna add sound though. Like they have to.
I don't think so.
There'd be no hillbilly show up.
Some cards in the spoke.
Yeah. Like those beads on the spokes just like trickle down. Yeah, it'll be weird. Who knows, man? Yeah. Who knows where it's gonna go?
It'll be interesting, but yeah, like you said, you could psych guys out as you're coming up to them.
Just like freak them out, just like go
laser
crazy.
Beam them.
That's good.
Have horn on your bike, just honk at them.
We were talking about that, how crazy technology is getting and how much it's advanced in the last like 15 years. We're talking like 15 years ago, you still have to look at a fucking road map to find out where you're gonna go.
Yeah,
you're going on a road trip with your family.
First time I went to California, I'm like looking at a fucking map.
Yeah, I don't know where we're going here. Pull over on the side of the highway and pull the map out on the hood and like draw it. Okay, I gotta go here. Like, man.
First, you got to figure out where you are on that map.
Yeah.
Probably
you gotta go find a gas station that sells the map of your district or your region. Like, what the hell?
Oh, that was good. I remember one time we were going to Anaheim Stadium and had to stop at a gas station to ask the guy because no phones at the time we were going. Yeah. So we stopped at the gas station. Asked
Nokia flip phone.
Hey, where's Angel Stadium? And the guy goes, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you got a map or anything? I don't know.
I don't know.
So we leave the gas station and just happen to turn down the block and there's the stadium right there. So in the guy's backyard, he doesn't even know.
You see those real bright lights over there? That's where you're going.
Oh, but yeah, that just like it would have been so much easier with a phone. Just whip it up, takes you right there.
But also now, do you find even when you're if you're in a new city, or not now with COVID, but last year when we were traveling lots, and you type in like someone sends you a pin or an address, the GPS is sometimes like way off.
Yeah,
it's like trying to. There's so many phones now, and so much like I guess like
interference or
yeah, that's a good word for it, interference.
Yeah.
The phones are kind of like, yo, this is like there's too much going on, and I don't really know where we are.
Yeah,
and you get frustrated with that. You're like, fuck, like figure this out already.
Right?
Smart people figure this out.
We were trying to figure out some place to go out east there. Like we were looking up some food joint. Like there's a million of them, right? Yeah. What's it choosing? The one in Victoria, like BC.
Yeah.
How the?
I don't want to go there. That area of the country.
Back, so yeah, that technology can be super frustrating at times. And,
yeah, even in every time I come to Calgary, which has been quite a lot in the last year, for whatever reason, the Apple app, like the one on your the one that's already pre-downloaded, never finds any address in Calgary. It just does a circle for me.
Oh.
Maybe my phone's fucked, but the Google one is always pretty accurate.
Yeah.
But it's super irritating.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, 15 years ago, we were looking at maps on a piece of paper and never bitched about it.
You had to know how to like navigate and find an address. What's a cross street?
Now people don't even know what direction they're going because they don't even know which way the sun comes up.
Well, I try to give people directions like coming to work, and I'll be like, okay, where are you coming from? They're like, over here, and I say, okay, so you'll be coming down this road, and they're like, yeah, that road, and I say, okay.
Yeah.
So as you come down that
the
road,
one with all the pavement.
Yeah, you're gonna want to turn north, and they're like, whoa, slow down.
Yeah, whoa.
And I'm like, turn north, like that's one direction.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, even now back so I live in the middle of absolute nowhere. For those of you who don't know, like on a cattle ranch in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And working there now due to COVID, the only thing you have is north, south, east, and west. There's no trees. There's no nothing. It's just like barren landscape and the odd hill, the odd rock, the odd animal. But it's like, okay, how did we get to this spot? Well, you got to go 4 miles south. You hit this, clump of dirt, and then take, you're gonna go east for 16 miles, and then depending on the time of day, look at your shadow, and you might end up where you're at.
Yeah, you'll be close. Yeah.
If there's tumbleweeds, you're fucked.
Well, that's one of the things that even I'm really bad at. Like I'm super good at navigating through a city. I know my Northwest.
I'm not.
All that stuff. But when we get out in the woods there, I can get lost pretty easily.
Well, it's easy to get lost. Well, everything's the same. Like
yeah. Like Jared somehow just knows exactly where he is when we get lost out at Cook. He's like, just go this way. Right?
I'm a weirdo. Like if we're driving in a car somewhere and I fall asleep and I wake up, I'm like, I gotta know exactly what direction we're pointing, or else I freak out. Like I need to know exactly what direction I'm floating.
No, we're still on ground. Like we're fine.
That's one thing I found with like a float tank. That's like a good thing for it because.
Okay, totally. Yeah.
Because you're like in this big I don't know. The float room seemed to do a little better for me because. You're in this big room and you can spin, right?
Yeah.
So
I've been in them. It's a trip,
to kind of let go of that control.
Yeah.
Because you'll spin and then you don't know exactly what direction you're pointed or where the door is.
Yeah.
So you're kind of freaking out, but you're like, okay, just calm down. You'll be fine. Like the lights are gonna turn on when this is done, and you'll know where the door is.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it so much.
Well, that's what I found about the float tank was like the first time I went in it, right? Okay, you get in there and you kind of get into the zone. Like it takes a bit to do it.
Yeah.
And I got spun around at one point and I went to reach for like the little towel to wipe my eyes off.
It's not there.
Not there. So I start moving around a bit, freaking out.
Yeah.
It's all dark. And then you just go, it's all right. Like there's a door at the end of it. You're not stuck in here.
Did you find when you got out of that float tank, how long did you go for your first one?
I did 60 minutes the first time.
Yeah, so did I. And when you came out of there, did you find you felt super like springy and spongy almost? Like it was. I was walking. I felt like Rock'em Sock'em Robot. I was just like ready to go.
Oh yeah, every time.
See, I didn't get that feeling, but we did like ours are 90 minutes, and I just felt like I was like super chill, just just
when you got
mellowed out. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You didn't feel like springy.
I don't feel springy, but I.
Oh man,
but
I felt springy.
Maybe I just feel springy in a different way, and that's like my mellowness.
Yeah.
Because I'm not all stiff, at least. I'm just
maybe that's it. Yeah.
Float tanks have big benefits for everybody.
I think they do. Yeah.
Like Hayden Halstead, when I was at his place a couple weeks ago, he's telling me about this. When he had like some gnarly experience, like a psychedelic experience in a float tank.
Oh, crazy!
Like he had, it felt like 5 days or something. Ooh. It was only 90 minutes. Like it was nuts.
I don't know if I'd like that.
Like it was like he did DMT
Hello?
or something crazy like that. But
I've heard other people say the same thing.
He
when you
fell
look
into
it
another
up,
dimension.
yeah, it's
they
like,
tell you it's
and
like
he also
being
had
in
an
the womb
experience with
again or
ketamine when he
something.
was like when he broke his leg.
Yeah.
So they
I've heard of a lot of
ketamine,
military people
and he-
getting gnarly injuries and having this like super tripped out experience where they're like they're out of their body and they're seeing themselves and in and out of it the whole time while they're like getting a leg amputated or something.
Yeah. So the way he described it, like I guess he would have to describe it to get the full thing, but he was like, just like seeing
Pull
all.
your mic up.
Oh, sorry. Just like seeing all these. This thing is not that great. Seeing all these like crazy things for the first bit, and then I guess it was like it felt like 5 days of just darkness. He had no emotion, no feeling for 5 days, and then when he came back in, he was in the corner of the room, like in the top corner of the room, watching himself, and he could just see himself talking to like the anesthesiologist or whatever, whoever was there, one of the doctors or nurses.
That's okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's seeing himself talking, and he's like, "What am I saying? I look like an idiot."
I'd say kind of the same thing I've heard from friends of
Yeah.
mine that have had bad injuries. Is like, man, it's like a weird. You feel super embarrassed. You don't really know what the hell's going on, and then you kind of snap out of it. And you're like, "What? Like, what the hell did I just do?"
Just out of body.
But you're like, not even. It's not you. It's just like your subconscious is somewhere else.
He said the doctor even admitted he gave him too much ketamine. Crazy.
Sorry about that. Enjoy your little experience here.
Thanks
he
for
told me-
waking up. That was.
He
Thanks
told
for
me
not
all-
ruining my life.
Yeah.
He told me all about this experience, and it was like the way he had described it was insane. Like just a crazy experience.
Was it in the States or was it in Canada?
It was in Canada.
Fuck, I've heard of them. Like, your insurance pays for a couple extra bags of morphine. They're like, so do you want this? Like, you're allowed to legally ask a super stoned person if they want another bag of morphine.
Really?
What the hell do you think I'm gonna
You're
say?
gonna
They
pay
can do
for
that?
it, sure.
Like,
Yeah.
It's
There's a
paying
limit
for it,
to
like,
it
why
though,
would you-
right? Like they can only give him so much.
Well, I don't know. Luckily, I've never had that experience, but from what I've heard, it's like, oh yeah, you can just, well, your insurance covers this. Do you want this?
I think they're kind of cracking down on it though, with like all the opioid.
Well, you'd hope so. Like that's kind of a
Yeah, like
sort of
even
a
like
messed up.
going with this injury, they're like,
Yeah,
"Are you
yeah.
on painkillers? Are you looking for painkillers?" I'm like, "No, I'm not. I don't want any painkillers." Like,
Yeah, man, it's a pretty. The opioid thing is kind of fucked up.
it's definitely,
Not
Crazy.
kind of. It's pretty sad.
yeah, very sad.
You find something that's that addictive. Like the pharmaceutical industry is a whole other ball of wax that we probably we can tap into a little bit, but I'm not an expert in it. But it's anytime you have a business that's making that much money, and it's profitable on so many levels, why the hell would the government or anybody involved with that ever want to stop that?
Yeah,
Or not perpetuate that cycle. It'll be there until there's war or like something stops with that. Like it's so addictive and it's so profitable. People making so much money off of this. It's a tragedy for sure.
And I don't think it's as bad in Canada as in the States. Like,
Well,
the
we
States
just
is
don't have the population
really
here. It would
crazy.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You see it being a firefighter, all the drug use, especially in Vancouver and stuff. It's like, or any major city. It's just so sad. Like people's lives are just turned on their heads because they get addicted to a pain management system that is just so fucking flawed. And there's no way to get out of it once you're in it.
Yeah.
It's like this is now your life. You're addicted to this drug, and if you don't have it, you're gonna go into severe withdrawal and probably want to die anyway. Like
Yeah.
it's just crazy. But wish there was a better solution for that.
yeah, it's crazy. Like even like I remember 10 years ago, I think you drove me to the hospital. I had welder's
Yeah.
flash really bad. We were at
Yeah.
Todd's house.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I came back. So you drove me to the hospital. I had welder's flash. I didn't know what was going on at the time. It was like it's probably more than 10 years ago.
What were you experiencing when you had that?
It was like sandpaper in my eyes. I had no idea what was going on. Like I'd never had it before.
You see, like, when you get your bell rung, you get kind of like the
No, it
purple
wasn't
dots
like I
and
couldn't
stuff.
see anything. It was just like so painful to close my eyes. Like it was just sandpaper.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
So Chris drives me to the hospital, and they prescribed me like a big bottle of Percocets or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when you guys ever had your wisdom teeth
Yeah.
taken out?
Yeah.
Huge bottle of Oxy.
Way
like
too
a
much.
Fucking
Like-
huge bottle. I'm like, I took one of those. I'm like, I don't even know where I am right now.
Yeah, like you can get by. Like you can maybe give you like 3 or 4 of them just to get through the next couple days.
But,
You don't need a
I
bottle of
didn't
them that'll
need.
last
I
you a
was like,
month.
that would have been like 16 probably. What are you in grade 10 or 11? Like 16, something like that.
I don't know. I didn't go
Like
to
you're
high
giving
school.
this to
Yeah.
kids in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
no wonder you have a
no
problem.
shit. There's an addiction problem. Like what? Like wake up. Like are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, one of our friends dislocated his elbow that one year, broke it, whatever it was. And
That's a little more gnarly than getting your teeth pulled out.
They gave him some mixture of oxy with something else in it. He said he was like seeing spiders crawling on the roof when he was like trying to go to bed.
You're just like a zombie. You're not even.
You're 15 years old. You don't need drugs like that. Like, sure, it hurts, but maybe the pain will help people get a little tougher, a little more resilient.
Well, that's another cool psychological.
That's part of our problem with society, right? You don't want to have any kind of pain or discomfort. And
there's a lot of pansies out there, a lot of them, because of that. Yeah. So you have a common cold, or you have like you stubbed your toe really bad. Well, it's got to be broken. I got to go to the hospital and like have all this attention drawn to me. Like, can you fucking get over yourself? Like, you see people in motocross like snap their leg in half. They're like, I think I could ride. Like, get out of here. Or you see the Cowboys are like, I told you that story of Mark there breaking his leg, and he's just like, yeah, I think I might have twisted my ankle, and like,
twisted it right around.
Your leg is behind you. So
yeah, he twisted it around.
Yeah, you twisted it around yourself, but yeah, looks a little twisted.
No, I remember Buddy broke his leg one time, and the bike was laying on top of him, his foot beside his face. And
that you're also dealing with shock there,
and so he's got a broken femur sticking out his leg, and all he's saying is, "Oh, my mom's never gonna let me ride again. My mom is never gonna let me ride."
That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
But you get all these limp dicks that have never experienced any like trauma or like physical trauma anyway, that are like that you can disassociate pain from like your end goal. It's like, this is not the end of the world. Like it sucks, but if you can go through this without any pain management, imagine how tough you're gonna be when you feel good.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, I have a cold, or like my throat's like sore, like I'm gonna get all this penicillin and all this other shit. Like, the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah. Like, stop. You're gonna teach your kids this?
Yeah, it's just the way.
And it's getting way. I mean, we talk like our grandparents probably look at us like we are the biggest pansies on earth.
Yeah, for sure.
And we are. Imagine like where I live now or where I'm at currently. It's like, imagine being the first settlers to come here in like 1800s and be like, let's put a plow in the ground here, and the first thing you fucking hit is a rock, and it's like all you can see for 100 miles is just barren tundra, and it's like, well, I guess we'll just put a shack up here and we'll try to survive somehow. Like, we're like, I gotta drive like 20 minutes to work every morning.
Yeah,
it's like we don't even know. You have no idea. We have no idea.
You went from no cars to a car in that situation.
Yeah, totally. Like, screw this, man. My horse is getting kind of tired even. Yeah. Imagine being like, I'm gonna go to town once a year to go like on our annual like group like whatever run. Yeah. And you have to heat up rocks in a fire and wrap them in a towel or a blanket and put them by your feet so you don't fucking freeze to death. That's like a world that hopefully we'll never experience, but like it was only 100 years ago.
That's the crazy thing. A lot of this stuff we talk about is not that long ago.
Yeah,
at all. It's like a blink of an eye in like the grand scheme of like the universe or the world. Like,
oh my god,
the human history.
It's like you talk about like our grandparents lived through that stuff where
it
was
people that are still alive like experienced that. Yeah. They're like, man, you guys got cars and like you're flying across the world in a day. Same thing. People bitch about airline travel. It's like, oh, like the seats don't recline and stuff. I'm like, you're in a tube of metal flying through the stratosphere to go to the other side of the world for like $800.
Yeah.
You could be there like in overnight. And you're bitching about, you didn't have lobster or like whatever your fancy meal was. Like, shut up.
That's crazy though. Like, it's kind of why I like your. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's kind of like your kind of what you do in some winters. You go up north. And you go experience
in the Arctic there for
that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, and you experience actually that hunting trip I went on in, I was up there working, but a couple of the elders and a couple of the people that I was working with, they took me on a hunting trip as like a kind of a rite of passage almost on the land and on the sea ice. In this was like it would have been mid-December, and it's like minus. This is like minus without the wind chill involved. It's minus 60, so it's like. I don't know, negative 75 or something with the wind chill like every day. Like it's a cold like you've never really fathomed.
Yeah.
And the Inuit people have been hunting and surviving up there for hundreds of years or more than that. And don't complain. They just like wake up and they go in there and like, we're going to go kill a caribou today out there. And you're like, how far? They're like, far as we need to go and we're just gonna sleep in a hut made out of snow, and you're gonna feel pretty shitty for a while until you eat something that has protein and fat in it, and then you'll warm up, and then we'll go home. That's their existence. I've never been more miserable and cold in my whole fucking life, and I was only there for 4 days. 4 days. Or I was on the sea ice for 4 days. Yeah. And we got stranded for 2 days because the storm blew in. And they're like, yeah, it's just like a regular day here.
So I guess just for the
listeners.
I
feel like such a pussy. I felt so like, I feel like such a baby out there. But it was cool. Then you go like, come home and it's like -20. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not heating up a battery in a pot of boiling water to try to get the snowmobile started so we can like go home to land, and like there's not polar bears chasing us. Yeah, that's a wild place up there, though.
So I guess just for the listeners, let's just explain a little bit of like what you did, what you went up there for.
Well, I went up there initially for some search and rescue stuff, but then I also went and I taught in the high school, in the elementary school up there, just as a substitute. My stepdad's a cop up there. He works with the RCMP. And he had a work posting up there, and decided that I should go see him and see a new part of the world. And I ran a hockey camp up there as well and coached some hockey. And it's such a different way of living up there. Like, most people in Canada, in the world, don't even know that none of it exists. It's like the north part of Canada or the north part of the world is just like this barren landscape that no one even knows about. And there's this like really cool group of communities that are there that have their issues, no doubt, but they've also been isolated from the government from years and years past, and we've just put them in these like communities and said like, we're going to take all your land, we're going to take all your hunting grounds, we're going to move you in these like camps further north where there's like really nothing to do up there other than like try to survive. And you get to see the type of people that live up there and how tough they are and how much hardship they've been through, and the problems with alcohol abuse and the problems with just trying to make sense of like where they are. Yeah. Like these people have nothing but work ethic and nothing but like, I have nothing but admiration for them and how they have chosen to live and how they survive. Yeah. Like we are so fortunate down here in the South. Like, it's not, you couldn't even imagine the stuff these people have gone through. And this is part of Canada, and no one even knows that they're up there. Like, it's brutal.
Well, we consider it like unlivable land.
What kind of is, because the government, right? Like, they moved them there.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want to say about politics, but it's like the government went in there and said, we're taking this, go to these these camps basically. We're gonna take all your dogs and all this shit, and we're gonna move you into like these huts. And this is where you're gonna be. Wow. We're taking all like the good grounds for our benefit. And it's like these people, like, their livelihood is built off of like whaling and like hunting. Like it's some of it's kind of gruesome. Like, they're hunting seals and they're hunting any animal that's up there. But that's the industry. That's how you survive up there. They don't have the luxury of going to the grocery store and being like, I want to buy, a loaf of bread and a bunch of eggs. They have stores there now, but it's like the white person introduced that.
Yeah.
But the hunting and like the lifestyle is still very much alive there, and it's like part of their culture and part of like who they are. And man, they can make and create anything out of fucking nothing up there.
Yeah.
And it makes you go like, I have nothing to complain about down here, like zero.
I know. And
like, I am such a pussy for ever bitching about anything, because then you go up there and you experience that, like truly experience that. It's like, nope. Right. There's an 85-year-old guy who's like riding a snow machine at like 100 miles an hour across the sea ice with no hood on, skin exposed. It's minus 65. And I got like Gore-Tex, and they're just like laughing. They're like, dude, like, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, I am such an idiot.
And I can sit here and try to pretend like, oh yeah, I can understand what it would be like, like, no,
you can't until you experience it. You can't. Like, there's no, like, oh my god, there's no way around. Like, the perception I have now of the North is so much different, because I never knew anything about it before. I still don't know much about it. Yeah. But it's so vast and so gnarly, and they're so tough, and they're awesome people up there. It was such a cool experience. I'd go back in a heartbeat. I might even go again this year. Who knows?
Cool.
Yeah. Part of me really wants to experience something like that. Like,
man, you should come up just for like a week, and we'll just go and we'll just cruise around. Like, they make fun of white people a little bit, which is fine, because like,
fair enough,
because we're like, we are pansies compared to them, but they are like the nicest people ever, and they want to show you their culture. And like this one elder taught me how to make a knife from scratch. That's the coolest thing ever. Like, you're teaching me how to make a knife. from pieces of like whalebone. It's the coolest thing ever. And they're just like, well, we have nothing else, so this is what we make stuff. Yeah. Man, this is wild.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Take you out there and like, yeah, we go hunting on these grounds, and like it all looks the same. It's just like white and cold, and like I'm like, I don't even know which direction we're at right now. They're like, you go that way, and just follow us, and we'll get you home. And they just do. It's just like, how do you know where you are? That's just wild. We went fishing up there one time. I was standing over this hole in the ice. It's a freshwater lake. There's like a bunch of lakes, and they all know where they are. It all looks like white to me, like whatever. So you can drive out on the Hudson Bay and on the sea ice, and we're like, I don't know how far north this is, longitude or latitude or whatever, but it's far. Like it's like a 4-hour plane ride north. Yeah. So you get there and you dropped off, and they drive you to this hunting camp, and they take you by snow machine for like a couple hours outside of like the village or like the town. And they get to this hole, and they just like start chiseling this hole out of the ice, and the ice is like 9 feet deep. Might even be more than 9 feet. Like it's higher than the roof. It's like a hole through the ice, and they catch a fish, and they use it as the bait fish, and they walk like 10 feet further because they know like how deep the water is. And like, we got to catch. If you're gonna catch like the big freshwater trout that have never seen a human being before and never been touched, they're right here. And the fish is like 7-8 feet long. Like it's the biggest fish I've ever seen. Yeah. And they're just like catching, but the fish, by the time you pull it out of the hole, it's already froze to death.
No way.
Like by the time it like wiggles up the tube of ice, they pull it out of the water, it's froze.
No way.
That's how cold it is. And you're standing on top of animal hides because you're freezing to death from the floor up. You're standing on like, it's minus like 65 or whatever with the wind. Yeah. You're standing, you have like a muskox hide on or some kind of animal coat. And then on your feet, you can have Gore-Tex boots, or you can stand on hockey pucks, wherever you want. Eventually the cold's going to seep through, and it's going to just go into your bones. Yeah. So they just lay out a animal hide, like a polar bear hide, and they're like, stand on this or you're going to die. And that's just like your day. And then you go back to like a shed built out of plywood, and they're like, yeah, we should probably like build a fire and try to.
Could you imagine showing up to work and they lay out a blanket and say, stand on this or you're going to die?
Yeah. See this hole in the ice? You're going to stand over this all day until you see something. But you can't move. That's your life.
I feel like our whole society just needs more of stuff like that.
Man, oh God. Like
needs more resilience.
Holy shit. People in cities, especially, if you grew up in a city, you're kind of hopeless. Yeah. Like you don't even have, like it's not your fault. Like you've never learned where your food comes from. You don't understand where, like you talk about like milk and eggs is like the main thing, but like talk about like even vegans, it's like, oh, you don't eat meat and stuff, but like, do you know what people that don't have access to like growing like agriculture have to do to live? They have to kill animals. They have to go hunting, or you die. Like it's just like a different world up there, and nobody. And I think if we all experienced that and we were all humbled by that, there wouldn't be any of the animosity towards like the racism that we're experiencing right now. Yeah,
totally. But yeah, people are just like, we're in such a like comfort zone that people are just looking for problems to have.
Oh, you talk about all this bullshit with the the uprising of with the Civil War and stuff, talking about in the States right now, and all the problems caused by social media. Nobody knows it's real anymore. We're all guilty of it because we all have social media, but it's like, if you have a factual list of like evidence-based facts that are brought out to the world, we've now created this system where nobody knows what's actually real anymore. So then how are you supposed to filter through all this bullshit and find like, this is the opinion I'm going to form? You're going to go with whatever the herd's saying. Mm-hmm. Like if you two disagree with what I'm saying and you kind of come at me, I'm going to go, okay, I probably should like maybe agree with you so that we're all like friends and in unison. Yeah. Well, if you go to like a certain part of the world that agrees on this side and the other part that's, I kind of agree with this side, and you have like this big disagreement, even though it's like probably kind of this similar topic you're debating, that's probably still you're trying to meet in the middle. Mm-hmm. Everyone's like really wants that. Yeah. You're just with the herd mentality with whatever herd you're in. Then you have this like big conflict that we have now, and it's all caused by non-factual based evidence.
Non-factual based evidence and being hurt by somebody telling
you. Well, there is no evidence
right?
involved.
Like,
it's just like
everybody gets too butt hurt because they've got that voice. They're just you don't.
Everyone has a cell phone now. I can go online and bitch about this podcast to anybody I want, and no one's gonna do anything to me.
No.
But if I tell you that in person, well, nobody does anymore because they're scared of it. Yeah. It's like our society is fucked up right now.
A little bit.
But it's only gonna get worse too.
Yeah, that's the other big problem. If everyone went to the north for a while and was like, holy shit, I am the biggest pussy of all time.
Yep. Or the North or the South or any of those
anywhere that doesn't have the luxuries that we have.
Yeah, exactly. 30 million people at your fingertips to do what you want too,
Totally.
right? Like,
skip the dishes.
Somebody will do it for me. Yeah.
And you talk to, like I said, like people who have been to really war-torn areas of the world. Like my brother, for example, did a few tours in Syria. He's not the same person when he came back.
Yeah.
And not in a worse way, but he goes, like, there's things that you're going to experience that most people in North America have never even fathomed. And you see that, and you live in that, that area. Or you experience these traumatic, things, unfortunately. It's going to change your whole perspective of life. But people who have never experienced that, you can't have a conversation with them that's going to move anything forward because they've never truly been exposed to that level of trauma. So how can you relate? How can you have any empathy for or experience empathy if something that you've never seen before? You can't.
No.
So.
Like I said, you can pretend to. You can sit here and say,
totally. We can talk about how sad it is, but I've never been there.
No.
I have fucking no idea what it's like. He has though, and he's not the same. And it's not, like I said, he's not worse. But it's like the reason he's so compassionate and has so much empathy is because he's seen the worst of humanity.
Yeah.
Not many of us have.
I haven't.
And until we get to that point where we see the worst of it, like no one's gonna give a shit.
No.
Which is kind of a disturbing topic, but.
Well, nobody's going to give a shit in a world where all we give a shit about is ourselves.
Well, that's another big thing.
Right.
Like, we're in a world full of narcissists now.
Yeah.
Big time. It's with social media and everything like that. It's just
we're all narcissists.
More and more narcissistic as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's nice to be able to talk about that and, like, check yourself with that shit because
that's right.
Even now, it's like, you think about all the things that even we talked about at the start of this, like, we're talking about racing dirt bikes.
Yeah.
Like, that means fuck all in the grand scheme of, like, really traumatic things that happen in the course of someone's life. It's like you're racing a machine that's worth, $12,000, $15,000. You're traveling across the world, burning fuel, and, like, there's fans, there's promotions, there's girls, there's all this fun shit.
Looks unreal.
Yet across the pond, there's wars going on and, like, stuff that you wouldn't even want to fathom.
Yeah. And
it's happening on our same planet.
Yeah.
And we don't even talk about it.
Go on with our merry day and do what we want.
It's like, just forget it.
Yeah.
Even like in Calgary right now, I bet you down the block there's something going on that we don't even want to know about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But we're just like,
Wow.
It's a trip, man. If everyone thought that way, we wouldn't have all the issues we're having. But unfortunately, we all do.
People are so wrapped up in their own little bubble.
Yeah. Everyone thinks their problems are special, and they're not.
Well, and that's
their problem.
And a lot of that's what you say. You're special, right? You're special.
Yeah,
you
but
should
you're not.
take care. You're the one that matters. Take care of number one.
Yeah.
Please, number one. Who's number one? You're number one, right? Like that's all you get told your whole life growing up is, try to take care of yourself. Yes, share and be nice to others.
Yeah.
All that stuff you
Share
get told. But what really gets enforced is take care of yourself. Make sure you're that self-centered attitude is like embedded in us now.
Yeah, and even more so now. So, like I said, with social media,
Yeah.
It's like, at what point did you be able to? You could make money on posting about a trinket you're selling that anyone could go to at any store but it's like you have a better photo and a better hashtag, or it's like, holy fuck, like we have lost our way, big time lost our way. Super disturbing.
Yeah. Or a lot of those things where you go online on Amazon or whatever and buy something that you could have almost made yourself. Like
you could.
It's not very complex. Or you could have figured out a way to do that yourself instead of
if you had to, you could do it.
Right?
Like these booms we have, we
Yeah.
bought them on for $25 on Amazon. I could have made something like this if I really had to.
Have a microphone.
Yeah.
I could have made something like that if I really had to,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do you guys find that you at some point in your life you've had you get really caught up in the materialistic bullshit, and then now you're like, what the hell was I doing?
I don't want any of it anymore.
I know.
I
That's
feel
like
the same
Take
way,
weird,
everything away from me. I want to go live in the woods and experience what that true hardship of
Well, I
it
feel
is.
like that's what humans are meant to do,
right?
right?
That's the thing. Remember we were talking about when you go to the backcountry or whatever, and you're like, you actually have to turn your phone on because there's no service.
Yeah.
You're like, man, why do I feel so good?
Yeah, that's the best
Like
part.
that's because that's what you're supposed to be feeling.
That's how. Yeah, you're not supposed. This
Yeah.
is not meant for. Like
No.
this is not how we evolved to.
We're like on the brink of fucking civil. We're on the brink of war, like World War III, I think. And it's
Probably
due
right.
to technology and the bullshit that is involved with the mass amount of fake news and bullshit. Because we can't filter through it all. And then when you turn that off, it's like, I have like anxiety because I'm like, I gotta keep in contact with everything and I need to know what's going on. Then all of a sudden it's just like I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Well, the one question I've been asking myself is, who do you need to keep in contact with? Like, if they're not around you, then like you can keep in contact with them in tomorrow or the next day or whatever it ends up being, right? Like, what happened to the days of you couldn't be in contact with someone unless you walked over to their house and knocked on their
We're
door
talking with
to
the map
say-
thing.
Yeah, or the map, right?
Cell
Like,
phones
this all
haven't been
goes
around
back
that
to
long.
Same thing. Like,
What the hell did we do when we were kids? You had to call the parents' house or like the friend you wanted to hang out. It's like,
Landline,
hello, Mr. Whoever.
And you had to remember.
Hello, Mr. Petruska. Can
Yeah.
Jared, is Jared home? Can Jared come ride his bike to my house? And you're like, okay, now I gotta ride over. I gotta ride over to his house and like talk to him like a real adult. That was like the shit we had to do, but it was like, it's not that weird now. But it's like, because now you can just text the person.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like, man, people need to all experience that fear of like going to like another parent's house
Well, it's like,
as a kid and talking to them.
because you're so accessible to people as well, I find, I don't know, I've done it, I'm sure you guys have too, where you almost screen your phone, like, oh, I don't want to answer that. And, you know, like, versus somebody
fuck
coming
this
to your door,
person.
you pretty much have to answer it. Well, you don't have to, but like, chances of you going to
Yeah.
answer your door were a lot more likely versus
Yeah.
now everybody's screening their phone call, screening messages.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll reply later, and then you forget, and it's
Yeah.
6 weeks later. Oh shit, I never replied to Buddy, right?
Well, part of the problem is these fucking telemarketers or whatever they're called. The scam guys. I get 2-3 calls a day saying my social insurance number has been compromised and
don't
Service Canada is putting out a
delete.
warrant for my arrest and like, fuck off with that.
It's so bad.
There's a lot of fraud artists out there,
worst.
man. There's a lot. There's people that build huge empires and business off of that shit.
Yep.
Yeah, like this is what I'm saying. Like it must work at some level, or else they wouldn't keep calling me.
Right.
Well, look at the state. Like, yeah, look at Donald Trump.
People find a way to make money at any.
They'll find a way, man.
Yeah.
There's always people that'll find a way.
Yeah.
But anyways, we switch gears here and talk
Yeah,
about
should we
something
switch
happy now.
topics? We're getting a little dark here. We're
I
getting
got
a
real
little
dark real
Got
fast.
a little negative like the rest of the world.
I think everybody, I really wanted to do a migration camp or not just migration camp, I just wanted to have a bunch of people out and come ride bikes and experience the wild, wild west back where our ranch is in Saskatchewan.
That'd be cool.
Because there's no service out there. And when you're outside and you're working, you're riding a horse, you're like, that's it. There's no cell phones. Like you have a cell phone on you, but like it doesn't work because there's nothing out there to no one to talk to other than your horse.
Yeah.
If you brought people out there and like had them there for like 4 or 5 days, I think you would see such an improvement in everyone's mental health.
No.
I think it'd be a really cool. I still want to do it
Yeah.
when COVID's lifted here and everyone
do
can
it.
travel and
Do
no
you
one's
think
scared
that,
shitless
like,
of everything.
People would need that kind of like 4 or 5 days away from technology more regularly for it to be actually effective? Because like
Well,
the
yeah.
4
Like
4
once a
days
month
feels
kinda deal.
great,
But it gives you
right?
perspective at
Right.
least.
But could you imagine if you're getting that regularly, time away from your phone all the time? Like, I
Well,
bet
that's
you-
what I'm saying. I feel so much better now that I'm like, well, I'm out riding a horse for 8 hours today, and I'm not going to touch my phone because what is there to fucking worry about right now?
Yeah.
I got to ride this horse to home. That's my day.
Yeah. I
And
think
unless it's like a true emergency, you can
Yeah, fair
make
enough.
do with not talking to somebody for 8 hours.
That's why I
Like,
got
not a
sat
big
phones. Yeah,
deal,
yeah.
right?
It's like, and it's weird because you ever think about this? So I think we're the last generation to really know what it's like to feel actually bored,
Probably.
like true boredom.
Well, yeah, bored. I guess. In
But
the
you
sense-
can't just like open Instagram and like scroll on Twitter or like
Yeah,
look at like
which-
you can't. You don't have a phone on.
Kids will say they're bored while they're doing.
Right,
that,
but I'm saying like
right?
we're I'm holding this title because this is all we have.
Like-
If you're born in 1990 or like later, you're fucked. But anyway, you have no cell phone when you're a kid, or at least I didn't. And you're in the middle. You grew up in the country, and it's like, man, I am so bored right now. But you can't look at your phone. You can't like watch a video or play a video game or anything. You're just like, I'm gonna be with my thoughts and like whatever.
You got to come up with.
You gotta like figure shit out in your head.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a healthy way to do things.
definitely.
absolutely.
That's what you're supposed to be.
So when
Like,
we're in the backcountry, we're all like, even at your bachelor party there, it's like none of us had a cell phone on us that time because there's literally no, like we had cell phones, but there's no service.
No service.
It's like, why did everyone feel so good after that? Other than we were having a great time, but it's like there were shenanigans. But like after, I'm like, I think it's because none of us gave a shit about the outside world for a while.
Exactly. That's why I love going to Kook. That's why I love doing these podcasts, even because we're sitting here.
Yeah, none of us have our phones on.
2 or 3 hours. None of us are looking at a phone. Like, how often do you have a conversation with someone, just like actually like an in-depth conversation?
Yeah.
Without looking at your, like, someone's always pulling their phone out. Like you're hanging out with someone, right?
Even like go to or before COVID, you go to a movie theater and everyone's like kind of like you're paying like, I don't know, $20 to watch this movie. It's like a decent amount of money to be engaged for like 2 hours, and you're like, you'd rather text somebody like, what's
the kook thing, the podcast thing, like you said, we're consumed by it. It's taking up our mental capacity. It's engaging us. It's making us better at that moment, at least.
And we don't even know how addicted we are.
Oh,
that's the problem.
That's the crazy
when you
part.
start to realize, like, whoa, I gotta like take a break. Like, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah, even just like us talking right now, I'm like, holy shit, maybe I should get a flip phone.
Like, you only have like 3 colleagues, like your mom and like your 2 closest friends, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, and I'd love to go back to a flip phone. Like, I would do it any minute. I don't have social media anymore, even though I'm sure I'll get it back at some point. Like,
Chris is a gangster.
But I think about the flip phone thing, and I'm like, fuck, there's that one day where I'm going to need Google Maps. Where it's just too convenient to have it, to not have it, right? But then the rest of that portion of it just consumes your life.
For sure it does.
Like, even though I don't have the
we're all hypocrites. I'm a hypocrite right now, for sure.
Right?
But
like, okay, so I say deleted social media. What does that really mean? Because I'm just substituting it with something else online. Going onto a motocross website or some
Pornhub.
other page, right? Yeah. You just substitute it with the phone there.
Got the browser app.
So if you're not getting rid of the phone, essentially you're still doing the same thing. So that's how addicted we are to whatever social aspect you want to call it, reading the paper, reading the whatever. Like,
well, yeah, and you look at, I wonder if we could hone in like addiction with our phones to like a sport or like academics, or like if we could find a way to get kids, like our next generation, to be like, find something you get just like psyched into, but it's it's so difficult now with technology because it's so easy now, and it's there, and it's like designed to make you addicted.
Yeah,
that's the whole purpose of it.
How many times have you gone home or gotten home after work or whatever it is, and you go, I just don't have time to do this, right?
All the time, every day.
I don't have time to do it. And then that stupid screen report comes up, right? And like, I'm on the lower end of that scale. And it's like, mine says an hour and a half. And I'm like, that's an hour and a half in the day that I could have been doing something else.
Yeah, like how often do you like...
Maybe it wasn't an hour and a half like all in one stretch, but you can still take that time and, spread it throughout the day or whatever. And you could have been doing so much more with that time than
reading,
focusing on somebody else's
like that.
BS.
Totally true, man.
In the morning, your alarm goes off. What do? You turn your phone on, scroll for.
I gotta wake up and read the news.
Right.
I'm gonna read Twitter and Instagram. Like, what?
I did that though. I went on my Instagram and I muted every single account I followed for the whole summer, just so I could still post. You kind of have to, right? And I feel like that would maybe give me a little clearer headspace and not be so inclined to just go and scroll.
Yeah. Well, I'm also thinking about, like you say, you kind of have to, right? Like, you have to post, you have to promote your brand and all these things out there, but it kind of almost gives you a little more respect for those people that did it before there was any social media. Like, how'd they get this stuff out to the world, to the whole world without, like, it's so easy for us to send stuff out to the world.
You're just good. You're just good. That
like
word of mouth.
You had to work, you had to grind, you had to fail at it, you had to get better, but...
well, that's the thing, is like anything that's going to be built on success, we talked about that earlier, it's like you're going to fail way more than you're going to succeed initially. Way more. And everyone wants that instant gratification now and that instant satisfaction because of the technology the age that we're in, and no one knows how to do that anymore.
I think that's why you see so many people that like are so quick to give up when they fail nowadays.
That's the thing. It's like, look, your life isn't over. You sucked. You failed. It sucks. But that's how you figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And is this really something I want to do? And if it is, then you find a way to make it happen. And if you don't, then you
move on.
You just don't do it anymore.
And if you really want it bad enough, there's always a way to make it happen.
For sure there is. For sure. And like I said, you talk about talent, and there's a lot of other things that are at play. Sometimes it's just like you get a really shitty set of hands and it's not going to work. But that doesn't mean something else isn't going to open up.
Yeah.
in that industry or that avenue that you never even knew of before. Oh. But yeah, so many people get you see all the mental health issues with people in the generation, including ours, due to this thing, this technology and social media. It's man, you are we're so weak. Just you gotta keep fighting. You have even with you, it's man, I've seen you fail time and time again, and a lot of it's not even your fault, and you just keep getting up and keep going. If we could teach that in a lot of the kids now coming up, you're the best role model there is for that. For real.
How many times in the summer did somebody say, "Oh, you should give up or quit or do this"?
Yeah, he just doesn't,
because it's a rough summer, right? But you can't you do that, and it doesn't make you any better to just give up or quit or
no.
Well, the thing is, I've been on that side of this. I've been on that side of the coin how many times? I've had my shit under the stick 3 or 4 times, and I've come back. I know how good it feels to come back and to be on the other side.
You did something with that negativity. You didn't just give up to it.
No,
but you said that thing you said. It felt so good to come back from that negativity. I don't think a lot of people get that good feeling in their life because they've never come back from something or failed and then gotten the success out of failure, right? They just fail and go try something else and fail and go try something else. They're never going to get that satisfaction that you felt, and they'll never understand why people have a drive to do something too.
Exactly, and you see the successful people in the world, and you're well, they don't see all the bullshit that happened in the 10 years leading up to the one day that they were really successful.
Yeah.
They don't see that shit. Yeah, we were talking about Mike Tyson earlier. It's well, it might be a bad example, but he's obviously this freak talent, but nobody knows the shit he went through when he was a kid to get to where he was.
Exactly. He had a lot of failure in his life, just at a different time.
And he still has a ton of failure now, and now look where he is now, and then he's coming back again. It's just and he even talked about that. He goes, it's the amount of failure and the amount of weird shit that happens, and the amount of craziness that goes on, and you give up, and you come back, and it feels so much better when you're I didn't give up on myself. I didn't just go no, I'm not doing this anymore. Because then you have regret, which is the worst, oh, God, that is the worst feeling of all. We've all felt it. It's the shits. I don't want to be an old dude sitting in a rocking chair and just being miserable as fuck and being really wish I tried harder to do that.
Man, you don't even have to be old. I look back
no, we've all got it,
stuff, and I'm damn, I regret not doing X or not doing this. Or and not that it would have made me a success at it, but I could have given just a little more.
But you'll know.
Right?
in your soul, know it's fuck, I should have done better.
If I would just done a little more, I could have achieved that goal that I actually set out to achieve instead of getting close to it and then being oh, I got to figure something else out because I'm getting to whatever stage in my life now. So.
Yeah, and I feel like those failures feel that bad for a reason. It's it feels bad because you don't want to feel like that anymore. You want to.
If you want to keep feeling that way, you got to go check yourself, man. There's something wrong with you.
That's the thing, though. People will either okay, I'm done with this, or I'm gonna get better at this, and I'm gonna be successful at this.
Well, and I think people do get addicted to that feeling of. That down feeling, right? People can get sucked into.
Oh, they can definitely sulk in it,
and sulk in it, or whatever you want to say.
Your problems are special.
They perpetuate that cycle themselves of
and they want to feel sorry for themselves.
Out of it, they'll come out of it. It's boom, they got to knock themselves right back down because that's the only feeling they've really ever experienced. They've never experienced that actual true success or good feeling of accomplishment. So they just
the other side of the shit is
again, right?
Everything you kind of want, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of people too are just scared shitless.
100%.
They're scared because it sucks. It's terrifying.
Fear is the most powerful thing in the world. Maybe not in the world, but you know what I mean. That's the biggest motivator, driver, influencer that you could have on yourself is fear. If you get scared of something, what are you gonna do? You're gonna
you have two options: the fight or flight response, right?
Right. And you don't have really much choice over that a lot of time in your life. Your body just kind of does it for you.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how powerful fear is.
But even think of stuff you procrastinate really hard.
Yeah.
It's not because you're a lazy piece of shit. You're scared of this thing.
Yeah.
I think about how much I procrastinate my taxes. It's not because I'm scared of math. I'm I just don't want to fucking know what I owe the government. What I fucked up on. I don't want to know that.
Yeah.
Because I'm scared of it.
Yeah.
And then you do it, and you're well, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that I've started realizing in life in the last 5 years, even is those things that you're scared of. After you do them, You really, it was, whatever it was.
You give all the power away. Yeah.
And then the next time you're scared of something, you go, I got through that. Yeah. So, I should be able to handle this, even though I'm still a little scared to go do it or whatever. And that's where having friends that push you is, I think, huge. Like, if I didn't have friends that pushed me in life, I'd probably be the biggest pussy in the world.
Well, Jared's bachelor party is a perfect example of that. We're all jumping off this huge rock. Okay. I don't want to do this, or even the road gap here at Swansea.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, well, fuck. I'm like, if fucking Keelan's doing this, I'm doing this.
Right?
Like, I don't care if I die, I'm doing this fucking thing.
Well, you hang out with pussies, you're going to be a pussy.
Yeah,
You're a product of your environment, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
But do you guys ever find, too, with the fear response, and again, the people in the sports that we grew up in are a little bit different for a reason, because the sports we're doing are very, very dangerous. Even road racing is fucking dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like you almost seek out these things that pull all your adrenaline, all your focus into one specific thing, because it doesn't allow you to think about anything else. Right. It's the only time in your life. This is me talking. I don't know about you guys, but it's like it's the only, even bull riding, for example, now, or like doing rodeo stuff. It's like I am scared shitless to get on this thing. Like this thing can fucking kill me in one thought.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna choose to get on this thing and try to ride it because it's the only thing. Or downhill skiing. This is not safe. There's a lot of imminent things that could happen here that could harm me. But it's the only thing that pulls all your other bullshit aside and makes you focus on what's actually happening. And it's the most and then the adrenaline kicks in. It's the most liberating, if you live. It's the most liberating feeling ever. It's the greatest feeling. I'm sure racing a dirt bike at a high level, hitting hucking the biggest whip ever, and you're scared shitless of a start, and you get a whole shot. It's like there's no other feeling like that. Because people that are scared have never experienced that.
Right.
And it actually is the only thing that we have that doesn't allow you to think about anything else. That's why I do a lot of the shit that I do. Because I'm like, this doesn't allow me to look at my phone, think about any of the bullshit and the stress and all the things that don't matter. I'm only here right now. And that's truly your life. You have moment to moment. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing that pulls you 100% into that moment. Because it's fear-based.
Yeah.
Everything, prior perception, all your neurons are firing to not let you die.
Yeah.
And it's that's 100% truly living.
Yeah. And if you can live that when there's no fear, if you can just live in the moment, that's one thing I've really wanted to try and get into.
That's what I'm getting.
In the moment all the time. I feel like that's the best way to reach your maximum performance, to be the happiest, just to live what's that quote? What was that quote? Here, this moment. Oh, fuck, I can't think of that quote from that movie, that gymnastics movie.
You know that movie, that quote?
Yeah, I know.
You know the gymnastics movie?
Which gymnastics?
There was
the
what was that gymnastics movie called? I don't know. I can't think of it. I fucked it up.
Jay, pull this fucking movie up.
Now, come on, where's your?
Jay, where you at, man?
Come on. Something about here, now, this moment.
Oh, I know. I think I know. Is this a women's gymnastics?
Yeah,
movie?
it's a gymnastics movie. Yeah, no, it's a great quote though. It's a famous quote.
What's that movie called?
I think it's here, now, this moment.
Well, it makes sense, right? It's that's really all there is. You think about, I don't know if I'm sure you've all have your own mentors and your own people you look up to, especially when you're in your early 20s. You're in those times in your life when you're a little confused of what you want to do and who you are, and you're trying to figure shit out. Not that you're never we're always trying to figure shit out. I don't care what age you are, but you get these people that go "What are you so worried about right now?" None of this stuff is occurring. That's this is the definition of anxiety. You're worried about something that hasn't occurred yet.
Yeah.
So, and we've all felt anxiety, and some of us are crippled by it and are medicated because of it. You're worried about this thing that hasn't occurred yet, and then you miss all this other shit that's happening, the 9 other steps of your day to get to the 10th step that might be really stressful. You've just neglected.
Yeah.
And then some people live 80 years like that.
Yeah. And you manifest what you think too.
100% you do.
Because if you're worried about something to happen, it's probably going to happen.
Because that's all you're thinking about.
And you're going to miss these steps, and you're going to drift that way into that.
Absolutely. And when I was racing at the highest level that I got to, I had this especially when I was in high school, I was really unconfident and really just I was always just really, really shy. I went to a sports shrink for like and I was super embarrassed to go. I'm like, why don't we try this? Because I was always like worried that I was always like touted as this talent that I could never perform when I really, really wanted to or when I really needed to. She told me this thing, and I'll never forget this. She goes, so everyone's telling you that you have this ability, and you know, like all your testing and stuff shows you have this ability. So you get on the start line. What do you tell yourself that makes you think otherwise? Yeah. And I just go like, well, everyone else probably has that same ability. She's like, or maybe they're thinking the same thing about you. Then you go, well, if we're all a little bit scared of everything, then what the fuck do we really? What are you afraid of? You're mostly just afraid of your own thoughts.
That's right.
What could be worse than like failing? You don't win. Like, whoop de fucking do.
Try again.
Or if you go the opposite way and go like, I'm gonna attack this race and go like as hard as I can, or like this person that's been beating me forever, I'm just gonna try to do whatever I can to not give up and to beat this person, or to like attack at a certain moment of the race where I normally would be terrified to. Then all the fear goes away, it's just gone.
Yeah. That's why I think when you see a lot of people that when they get a bad start or they crash in the first turn, they have the best moment of the best race of their life because all that fear goes away. If your response is just gone now, you're just like, oh, holy shit, okay. You're in the moment and you're just doing you're just riding your bike. You're just reacting. You're just riding your bike.
Yeah. That's that moment, like, and then the next race I did after that was like a pivotal moment in my whole life. I was like, who gives a shit how afraid I am right now? Like, I'm literally talking myself out of trying to win. Yeah. As crazy as that sounds. And it all changed after that.
Yeah. So I kind of agree. Well, I 100% agree with you there. So that was like the mental side of kind of like what I call looking forward. Yeah. So I was always taught growing up, like whenever you're doing something, whether it's skiing, driving, motocross, wherever you're looking is where you're going.
For sure it is, yeah.
And I kind of take that into the mental side of things too. If you're looking for that crash in the first turn, you're going straight for that crash in the first turn.
For sure you are.
You know, if you're looking for the whole shot, you're looking to out-pedal those guys, whatever it may be.
And obviously shit happens. Like sometimes you get crossed up or whatever, but you don't want to be thinking that.
But yeah, the minute you think it or the minute you're kind of focused on that or looking at it, that's exactly where you're going.
Yep.
You have really no other choice. Your body's going to make you do it.
100%.
If you're riding your bicycle down the road and there's a rock and you start staring at that rock,
you're going to hit the rock.
Hit that fucking rock.
Like the big Boda.
Inside joke.
But there's a big boat on the side of that trail. Don't hit that boda.
Yeah, so
you're gonna hit the boda.
It's mental visualization or actual visualization. I think whatever you're looking at mentally, physically, that's where you're going. So
all that stuff that we talk about.
Like you said, you're looking at the other riders on the line. You're looking at them thinking that they're better than you. Well, you've already said they're better than you.
That was the whole thing for me. I'm like, they're all thinking the same fucking thing.
Yeah. No, everybody's scared shitless to be on.
Everybody is.
Everybody.
Everyone's scared right now.
So the guy beside you might be a little dumber than you are, but
or way smarter for my who knows?
Right?
But yeah, that'll always stick with me. And I was like, I was like 16 or 17 when she told me that. I'm just like, man, that's like totally right. Like, what am I? I'm afraid of myself to like maybe potentially have success. Like that is whacked.
Yeah, and I feel like everyone kind of knows that deep down, but it's like when they fail once, they kind of revert back to that mindset
talking
of being
negatively, like
fear-based.
I suck. Yeah. Like fuck, I'm a piece of shit. I shouldn't have done that. I'm embarrassed. Like you're a failure, and then it just continues.
Right.
Then you can have like these unreal training days because there's no pressure on you, and then you get to the start line, you're like, I remember that one time when you like really sucked, and everyone saw. Then it's like, well, who the fuck cares? Like no one remembers that except for you.
Yeah.
It's like. That's what makes a good rider or like a champion based on someone who's just gonna kind of float through the whole.
Why do you think it is that we remember all those shitty moments of ourselves, even though nobody else does?
Right.
Like, what is it about us that's just holds on to that? Remember when you sucked that day? Remember when you did that stupid move or whatever it is? Nobody else can remember it, but
because it's your ego.
Yeah, there you
definitely.
go.
Yeah. You're like, I'm judging you pretty hard, man. Remember that time everyone saw you with your pants down?
Yeah.
But it's like, that's just your ego brainwashing you. That's all anxiety is, man.
Yeah.
That's all that fear is. It's like, well, what's the worst that could happen here? You don't win. Okay, well, that was probably going to happen anyway because you were fucking talking yourself out of it to begin with. Yeah. But what if you shut the fuck up and try to win?
And that goes for
And you did.
anything in life, right?
Yeah.
Like, just
Yeah.
shut up and try it. Like,
That's one thing I try to tell myself all year. I was just like, you know what? It's going to be what it's going to be. I'm going to go out there and give it my best, and it is what it is.
Even with this podcast you guys started, which I think is super dope, it's like it's terrifying to start something new.
Oh, yeah. It's
I
scary.
have
Everyone's
no
going to judge you. Everyone's going to tell you, what the fuck are you doing? Right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, like, who's going to listen to this or whatever it is?
Who cares?
Same thing with migration. It's like, what are you doing? I'm like, you literally just have to start it, and then it'll just happen, however it's going to happen.
But because there wasn't, like, maybe with migration, right? There wasn't immediate huge success. Like, yes, there was small little successes and stuff.
No, it was.
But over the last few years, it's grown and gotten better, and
Yeah.
more people are on the program, and it hasn't stopped. It's just like,
And a lot of that has to do with the people, the really great people that I get to work with and that I have got to learn from, and then their promotions and their work ethic. But yeah, it doesn't just happen overnight.
but if you gave up quick like that, you wouldn't have met half those people.
Well, trust me, there's a lot of times where I was like, man, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
But we talk about that lots.
Yeah.
And I'm sure even to this day, you probably still say, "What the
Oh
fuck
yeah,
am I
COVID
doing?"
hits and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, well, I'm done for it.
But I'm sure there's other days where you're like, "Damn, this is sweet. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
you
glad
get-
I went down this path."
Yeah, you get the one day you're like, oh, genius. And then there's all the other days.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's very, very humbling though, especially when you start out and you're like, I have no, even like I talk about taxes, I'm like, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And I go to account, like almost in tears, like, please help me. Like, here's like all my books and like all like these numbers and like receipts, and I'm like, please just help me. They're like, oh man, you poor bastard.
Yeah.
But then you learn. That's just how you learn. Because you're terrified of this thing that's like not even a legitimate feel. Like this, like taxes are not going to hurt you. Or like,
No.
like
Well,
no, but like, you know what I mean? Like no one, like it's not like imminent death. Like no
Yeah,
one's like coming at you with like a gun
No,
and like
yeah.
chasing you and be like, you owe this money,
Yeah.
money, or whatever it is. Or it's like you have to do all this book work. It's like I have to do the work. I'm like, that sucks. But I'm like afraid of like failing doing that work improperly. So
Yeah.
ask for some help.
yeah, you got to ask for help.
Yeah.
If you don't ask for help, you're never going to succeed.
How do you know how to do something you've never done?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I feel like an idiot. I'm like, but you've never done this.
Yep.
So take it easy.
And
Like,
again, that's that ego coming.
totally
out.
it's ego.
Yeah.
It's all ego. I'm like, I'm going to feel like a fucking loser if I don't do
Yeah.
this right. It's like, well, you've never done this before.
Yeah, and too many people are scared to ask for that help too,
Oh,
to try
big
to
time, man.
succeed. Like, how many professional racers think, "Oh, I got the training aspect of this lockdown. I got the technical aspect of this lockdown. I need a better bike."
Yeah.
And reality is,
Yeah.
you need to ask for help in all three of those
Oh,
areas.
for sure you do.
Well,
And
how
you'll
many
never,
people are just
like, I mean,
scared
some
of-
people get it mastered, but it's tough to get it mastered. Like,
Yeah. How many people are just scared of looking weak by saying, "Oh, I need help in this area, or I need help in
Yeah.
this area"? Like you can always grow in every area.
Well,
oh, even now, like, you talk about people like going, like, I go to therapy lots just to, like,
Therapy's good.
there's, like, I got to sharpen some shit that I suck at. And, like, the mental side of things is all there really is.
yeah.
The body and everything will follow that, but it's like even like your personal life, it's like, man, there's some shit that I really don't know. Like, I don't know how to do this, or I suck at this, and it's like eats you alive, and you're like, I'm a fucking man. I'm gonna be tough and not get help for this. Well, how do you know how to do something if you've never experienced it or never done it? That's where the fear comes in, because you're just like, I don't know how to do this.
So you either have to learn by failure,
Yeah.
or accept the help. Like,
Yeah,
those
totally.
are really your only
Which is
two
also
options,
terrifying, but
right?
it's like that's the only way. The only way forward is through.
Yeah.
And that goes even with like tough conversation with friends and stuff like that. It's like we've all had those moments. You're like, I gotta talk to this motherfucker because this is starting to piss me off, or like whatever.
Yeah.
And you just don't do it, and it just blows up.
Yep.
Now I'm like, if there's an issue, let's have a conversation. It'll suck for like 5 minutes, and it's like, oh, you learn something about the other person, or you see like a different perspective. And you're like, that's why that was going on. And then you can like nip it in the bud, and you can like, move on.
Yeah, don't
And,
do it
like-
over text where you're not gonna get any kind of emotional reaction, right? It's gonna be terrible.
But you let the shit boil over, and you like have all this animosity, and then it's ruined.
Yeah. The biggest thing that you just said to me was perspective, right?
Yeah.
You don't understand the other person's perspective. You may think they're copping out or not doing, oh, they don't like this. You just don't understand their perspective. Maybe
Yeah.
there's something else going on.
When everyone wants to be right, and a lot of times you're
It's
not
ego.
right. That doesn't matter.
Oh, like, I'm one of those guys who wants to be
Yeah.
right all the
Yeah.
time.
So yeah.
Well,
But
that's everybody, right?
the
That's
reality
everybody.
of the situation is you're wrong more than you're right, but
Or even if you're both right or you're both wrong, it's like,
there can be a
okay,
different
there's
way
got to
of
be a
it.
common ground here. Like, that
Yeah.
we're both trying to say the same thing, but we're just like fucking screaming at each other or whatever. You like talking about the rookie salary cap there in the NHL or whatever. It's like that was the dumbest. Like we're both kind of right, but also like you're probably more right than I was, and I was just like, fuck this piece of shit. I'm gonna argue with him until I win. Like I'm gonna submit you, and he just didn't. Like I'm just like he's not fucking backing down.
We wasted probably what 2
hours at least, like
that?
sitting at the bar just like bitching each other, and then it's at the end of the time we're like, what are we even doing?
Here's one of my favorite things about like
that was cool though because we came out of that. Like,
it was like we come out of that still having our different opinions
still
on
have a
it or
different
whatever,
opinion, yeah.
but like still friends, still laughing, still And at that point we really didn't even know each other. In fact, it might have made our relationship a little stronger because it was like, all right, I respect this guy for being able to stand up for his views and opinions and whatnot.
I was like man-to-man combat, man. Like no one was backing down from that. Yeah.
That was fun, and I think a lot of people miss that in conversation these days. And also, what ruined that whole conversation was bringing a phone out to see
totally,
who was right.
Yeah, what people do before phones are like, you just debate until you like, I don't know, one person dies, I guess, or like, someone gets like a meat cleaver and like gets aggressive. I don't know.
Well, people talk about not being able to have conversations with people anymore. Well, half of the conversation was trying to figure out what's the actual fact here.
It wasn't even that we were mad at each other. It was like, what's actually right here? Like, we're trying to get to the bottom of an actual problem we didn't know.
And you're just saying, oh, no, I know this guy.
Yeah.
You're saying, I know this guy.
You can
know this
like
guy.
two different articles that say one thing, one says the other thing.
Yeah, totally.
So stuff like that's fun, and then we can sit here better off today because of it. And then I know I can have a real conversation with you and debate you on something and go, actually, Brad, I don't agree with you because of XYZ. And you'll probably look at me and go, you know what? Yeah, maybe I should listen a little bit. I'm still not going to agree, but I should listen a little bit because we've had conversations like this before where, something constructive actually comes out of it instead of just, all negativity.
For sure. And, everyone has these moments in their life, too, where you have, like, whether you've been bullied or you have some trauma and you're like, you have these set of patterns in your life, which develops your, like, subconscious psyche, right? Your personality is dictated on your past. So if they have these like certain tendencies to be aggressive or you have these tendencies to be shy or whatever they are, right, for each individual, it's because of something that happened to you in the past. So then how do you reprogram that? Well, you kind of have to you have to take your ego totally out of it, and whether that's therapy or whatever the hell route that is you choose, and go, I'm going to be very vulnerable and be very uncomfortable in these conversations, even if I disagree with this person, but let them speak and talk to them about something that I highly disagree with. And I almost guarantee 9 times out of 10, when you come out of that, you're like, I don't actually agree with what I was thinking before all the time.
Yeah.
And it goes from both sides, too.
Totally. Yeah. But to actually, like, because I'm a fucking combative person. I'm just like, if I am fixated on something or I want something or I am pretty passionate and, like, knowledgeable on something, I will fight you tooth and nail. But as I get older, I realize I'm like, man, that's super stressful. Like, wears you down after a while.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, yeah, maybe that's true, actually. And maybe this person that only sees it from their perspective, that's all they know. Yeah. So then you have empathy towards and then you can have like an actual legitimate and mature conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe I just late to the game on that, but it's a cool realization to learn moving forward.
No, that's totally. That's everyone's lacking that because we all communicate over text.
Yeah.
Well,
you don't get that because you don't get the social cues and everything like that when you're texting.
Yep.
You don't feel the same connection.
Yeah. When I was in the southern U.S., sorry to cut you off there.
No, it's all good.
In the southern U.S., when I was in university there, we can talk about night and day about religion and anything to do with that there. But the fact of the matter is that people down there they're pretty devout in their faith and their way of life, and that's just what they're brought up in. And I have a different point of view from where I grew up, and like you would all have a different point of view. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but to have a conversation and put an idea into someone's head that they've never actually thought of before is a super powerful way to have an engaging conversation with somebody and build a relationship with somebody, even if you disagree to the point of like you would fucking kill each other. Just to have that space where you're like, what if though?
Yeah, well, that's how you get an engaging conversation.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Like even talking about space with these people who are like devout. I'm assuming they're Christian.
They're flat earthers.
Flat Earth.
Whatever. Yeah, or flat or whatever the hell it is. It's like, but have you ever thought of this before? They're like, no. Like, why? Well, that's a system. That's that's the system they grew up in. They've never been allowed to think for themselves, or in my case, I've thought a certain way my whole life, and then I met you, who thinks completely opposite of what I do. I'm like, holy shit, you think a totally different way than I have ever even imagined.
Yeah.
Then you go like, what's actually right here? What's actually wrong? Well, maybe there isn't anything to do with that.
Yeah. And you can tell a lot by the person by asking them that one question that you said there, like, have you ever thought about it this way? If that person instantly reacts and responds,
and they get defensive.
They're not thinking, right?
No, they're not thinking.
But the guy who goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, but you know what? There's maybe this little...
Yeah, and you're going to have, like, you have, like, 20... If you're, like, over the age of 25 or whatever, you're going to have some fucking... Even if you're over the age of 20 and you've been, like, brainwashed your whole life to believe one thing from your parents, or, like, we all have that. And then all of a sudden someone hits you with a sledgehammer of, like, what about this, though? And you're like, fuck that. Nope, that's not true. Well, how do you know? You never thought of that before.
You didn't even take time to consider it.
You
have no fucking clue.
So now it's like, whoa, everything that I've ever been told could be false.
Yep.
Potentially. There's nothing wrong with that. No one's right and wrong there. It's just like, that's the reality of the situation right now. Yeah. Allow yourself to open up to that vein of, like, that possibility that could be there. Then you have all this, like, cool, like, vulnerability and openness with all these, like, different groups of people that you can bring into your life. And that's the coolest thing about migration, I think, is that there's so many different walks of life in the people that we train, the people that are involved with this business, that I'm like, I learned so much from different people, and even the people I disagree with heavily. I'm like, okay, I think that's horseshit. But also, I'm like, maybe there's something, like, you have something there that I never thought of before. So we're going to learn from that regardless, whether I disagree with you in the end anyway.
And one of the biggest things that I've been trying to take out of a lot of things in life, whether I go to a seminar or a meeting or whatever it is, it's you don't need to pull the whole thing out. You don't need to go and agree with somebody's big theory. You don't need to go and strip your whole life and re-plug in this new thing. Take a piece out of it.
Yeah,
take a piece out of it. Take little bits and pieces of this and that, and the next thing, make your own formula. Because that might work for you, that worked for that guy, and all those other things. But to just shut it out of your life and be like, no, that's no good. Well, you're not going to gain anything from anything ever if you just shut everything out all the time.
Right, but even like some of the cowboys that I work with now, like their entire life they've been in the same area, in the same town. Who am I to say that? Well, what you think right now is bullshit because you've only been told that your whole life. Huh. You've never traveled like I have. Like, you never had the opportunity that I had with sport. Yep. You've never seen different parts of the world. So, of course, like, if someone told you this, like your parents, your grandparents are all in the same town and they all grew up, like, in that area, of course you're going to believe that. Yeah. That's all you know. So you have empathy towards these people being like, look, like, there's a shit ton that you actually don't know. But instead of getting pissed off at them, that's not going to solve anything. They actually don't know. Doesn't mean they're stupid. They just don't know. Yeah. And then you bring like this my mom's husband or boyfriend. They went to this big finals rodeo in Vegas a couple of years ago, and I was living in Vancouver at the time. They flew into Vancouver, and he's a full on cowboy. Like fuck it, like he is who he is, and I admire him for that. But he is not changing. So we were walking through Vancouver, and like, there's all these Chinese people like taking pictures of him. They're like, "Holy shit, like a real cowboy!" He's like, they thought he was like a gag, they maybe thought he was like a stripper or something. I don't know. Yeah. He's like, "What the fuck is everyone taking pictures of me for?" I'm like, Mark, they've never seen an actual one of you before, and he had probably never seen a Chinese person before. Yeah. He's just like, I see like these two worlds just like smashing into each other, and there was like no hatred. It was just like, whoa, this is kind of weird, but it's just like
purely stunned.
It was super cool because I was like, man, you've actually never seen this before.
Yeah.
Ever. It's just like, but there's no like, he wasn't like, fuck you, like, will you take my pictures? He's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, yeah, I guess we'll try some like sushi. Like, never had this before, but like, there's no right and wrong with this, right? Like,
right.
If you can get the whole world to like experience that and have that sort of empathy, oh man, we'd be in such a good place. But unfortunately, we get people that brainwash everyone to
that's where like
believe that they're right.
You almost got to randomly grab somebody, pick them up, throw them across the world.
Yeah, you have to implant them in a place that makes them so fucking uncomfortable they have no choice.
Throwing darts at the wall. Here you go. This is where you are today. Like, and then people will start to understand. Oh shit! Like, there's a lot to this life thing.
Yeah, that's how you expand, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
If you just lived in your own little world the whole time, you just be the same all the time. You just
Which
be the
would be
same
kind of
your whole life.
shitty.
Which
Yeah,
is
it sucks.
why it's like, you know, even with the motocross thing, like you got to break out of that motocross
Totally.
community. You got to break out of the motocross
Healthy.
track. Like, it's healthy to go get those other exposures.
So I was saying, like, when I came in from the sport I was in, it was like, you ride your bike, you starve yourself, and you try to be as skinny as you can, and you don't have any fun. You don't even like drink a beer or think about that, and that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
And you meet this motocross world, and it's like, this is kind of cool. This is fun. This is like not the same mentality that all the other people have, and it's like you find this pattern of like things that you're like interested in and what you like.
Yeah.
You just find your way.
Yeah.
So you have to have diversity, or you're never gonna figure out what you like.
Yep, I agree. Like
So,
that's
so even if you're a cowboy your whole life and you go and experience all these other things, and you still want to be a cowboy, then you know.
Yeah.
But until you know for sure, don't say anything because you don't know.
And you got to have that diversity in a lot of aspects, and then you got to learn when to not have too much diversity in your
Right.
profession. Or
Well, you're gonna
sport.
find eventually like what you like and don't like.
Yeah, you got to focus in on some things, and then some things you got to realize I need to pull from outside my talent pool. I need to pull from outside of here. That's where we were talking earlier about asking for help,
Yep.
because you don't know it all. You need that diverse opinion, so to speak.
Or even finding toxic relationships, right? Like even with your friendships, it's like these group of people I've had since I was a kid. Well, they're not helping me expand or like do anything, or like vice versa. Maybe they think that I'm not helping them grow or mature or whatever it is. It's time to branch out.
yeah. I think we don't think like that enough.
No, and there's actually like
enough.
I used to be really offended by that. There's actually nothing really wrong with that.
No, not at all.
It's like you're gonna find your way, and it's gonna change every couple of years probably. If you're doesn't mean the person's a piece of shit
No.
unless they really wrong you. It's like they're not a piece of shit. They're just like you're at different points in your life, different paths. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, that's where I always enjoyed having friends that were like Jared and Todd. They were out racing and doing that thing, and I was fully consumed with motocross and whatnot. And then they'd travel out east, and it's like, well, I'm stuck here by myself. I can't be stuck in this little motocross bubble. I got to diversify and go outside of it. So I'm going over to hockey friends. I'm going over to mountain bike friends. I'm going over to
That's awesome.
over here, over there. And I gained so much more like appreciation for my motocross friends from learning from those other friends.
Yeah.
And I gain appreciation for them. You know, like it's that perspective. Like
all
you said
perspective,
earlier,
man.
right? You got to gain perspective to be able to understand anything in life, really, I think. And I don't have enough perspective yet. Like I have zero perspective on life and in the overall, when you look at the whole.
There's nothing wrong with that though, because you're still pretty young.
That's right.
We're all pretty young in the grand scheme of
How
life.
many 18-year-olds think they have all that perspective already because they went through high school? You know, I certainly probably thought that. You know, coming out of high school.
We probably all thought that.
Well, I'm ready. I'm lived. I'm an adult.
I think people.
My balls dropped. I'm good.
Yeah.
I think people get sucked into that even like in their careers, right? Like they just in their career and they're comfortable there, and they don't want to. They're too scared to go and like branch out and try something new, and they're just like, there's that fear of failure, and then there's like, I guess the fear of being uncomfortable, and you're like, you're gonna go. That's how you get better at your whole view on everything is going and doing something you suck at, and then that gives you a whole new perspective on everything.
And you're gonna get respect from your peers if you come up through something you fucking suck at, and you like learn how to be good at it, or you at least try to like okay, I'm gonna suck at this for a while, and I'm gonna smash my head into the wall. People see that, they're like, okay, this person like gained my respect because they're just like doing shit that I would never even fathom doing.
Yeah,
that's cool in my books. Like I'll always have respect for people that are like, I don't know how to do this at all.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try this though.
Yep.
And you just keep plugging away.
That's how you learn.
That's awesome. It's the best thing ever.
I think that's why, like as kids, we had a little bit of success,
Beer
at
burps.
least in our like professional careers outside of motocross or school or anything like that. Was just because we would branch out when we were kids to try to learn how to build something, how to go do this, whether it was prepping the track, building a go-kart, you know, figuring out how to get across town by ourselves. Like, man, I remember we would literally walk across town, just like stupidest thing in the world, but how much did we learn from walking across town?
You learn it's fucking cold in
It's
winter.
cold out, right? Like, all right, we learned get some freaking clothes on. Number 2,
You're not a tough guy anymore.
Buy a bus pass.
Shit is cold out here.
No, I think it's good. Like that goes back to the whole thing I was talking about earlier with racing. Like, you got to do as much different shit as you can if you want to expand on your riding skills. Like,
yeah. The first part of this conversation got a little fucking chaotic, but it's like that's what it comes down to. It's like if you don't go into all these different avenues, how the hell are you gonna know what you really like?
Yeah.
Like, if all you've ever done is motocross your whole life, and all of a sudden you like pick up surfing, you're like, holy fuck, I love this shit, and I hate dirt bikes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what your path.
Maybe that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, who's to say you can't love dirt bikes and surfing?
Well, yeah, that's the other thing.
Like, maybe you can't be a professional at both because you do need to have some sort of focus.
Yeah.
Like
for
a
sure.
champion level success at least. But
there's certain mindsets that are just like they like do a bunch of shit, and that's okay.
You look at guys like Ken Roxon, they go surfing. Cooper White, they go surfing. Like, you can and I bet you surfing makes them better at riding the dirt bike the next day.
Well, it's that mental equilibrium that we're trying to find, right? And some people are like, they're just happy riding 100% all the time. That's all they want to do. All the power to you. I could never do that. Nah. I like fucking hanging out with, on a boat and going to hang out with my buddies and flirting with girls and doing like other fun shit that didn't involve racing.
Do the hangout part and then go do the training part. And then go
still dedicate to what you're doing.
Like,
but also have a life outside of it.
Yeah.
Because then when you really have to focus on what you're truly want to succeed at, you're there.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about all that other shit because you're doing it as well as this.
Yeah. Well, and if you're doing the like social aspect correctly, well, I guess correctly, who's to say correctly, but if you're doing that social aspect in a manner where you can spin it as networking, you can spin it as this or that, right? Like, it's not just going out and getting obliterated every night.
No. No, not at all.
It's go out, and how many people have you met that have given you just like that, either a different business perspective because of something they've told you
every day, man.
Oh, hey, Brad, connect with me on this in a month because, I can maybe, get something rolling for you or whatever it is.
Yeah,
so you do have to break, like we keep saying, like I feel like we're just broken records here. You got to branch out. You got to diversify. You got to find that guy at the bar the one night or the restaurant or
opportunity lies everywhere, man. You just got to look for it.
Or you got to find the cowboy at the ranch or the guy on the ski hill or the guy at the motocross track. Like, if you were only focused on motocross racers, that's a pretty small pool of people. Like,
it's
a large pool of people.
It'd be a very boring existence.
It'd be boring in a sense, right? You'd get kind of worn out of it.
Right? But they said there's some people that don't, and that's fine. I just wasn't that guy.
In, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I train these motocross guys, and the skier guys got a little different program, so let's,
And then you can pull of all these different things you learn from these other sports that you're like, this could actually really aid in motocross racing, or like, this could aid in rodeo stuff.
Yeah.
That like they probably never even heard of or seen before.
Well, that's why I asked you, what did you get out of motocross that like, you never had before in the cycling world, because that interests me.
Lots. Mostly the mental side.
What can we bring from motocross to the professional sports world, and what can other professional sports bring to the motocross world?
Yeah.
And, that's where guys like Alden Baker and yourself and all these other trainers are kind of changing the game of motocross. They're bringing an outside perspective.
Yep.
Right. And, a lot of motocross guys have ex-motocross racers as their trainers. You don't really see their results improve drastically.
As I was saying, and I've never said, like, I'm not a technical guy on a bike. Like, I'm not the guy telling you, like, what tire pressure to run or, like, what suspension setting to run. But we're trying to get, like, the physiology side is what we're specializing in trying to help you with.
Yeah, the physiology
side. But there's 10 different
side.
Things going on that we're one piece of this.
Yeah.
You ever think that, like, I find every time I switch bike brands or I'd make a major switch in my racing career, like a major path switch, I find I get better. I think it's because you get that different perspective of, I don't even know
what you like, what jives with your body.
Yeah, it's just like as small as it is, it's like a different bike. It just like changes your mindset just a little bit, and it gives you a little bit different perspective, I think.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the training side too. Like, there's a lot of people.
Whiskey in the throat.
Let's make this awkward. Just stare at him while he chokes to death.
Right.
Hurts so bad I'm choking on my own spit. I found too I find with a lot of riders, they get so worn out and you just need that mental break. But your body isn't fatigued, just your mind is.
Right.
So when we go ski touring, like that's the whole reason we started ski touring. It was like, man, this is so much fucking fun. And I'm like getting kind of the brain didn't really know much different in terms of the physiology was still the same. I was still getting the same training effect, by like ski touring for 6-7 hours a day as I was. That's maybe a bit aggressive. Let's say 4 to 6 hours a day, as I was riding a road bike. But I wasn't miserable in riding in the rain and the piss and like the snow and just feeling like a bag of smashed asshole all the time. It's like I'm having fun doing this.
It's fresh. It's new, right?
Super refreshing.
Throw that back at you a little bit too. It's like if all you're doing is ski touring, I'm sure that would come miserable like those rainy days on the bike and stuff, right?
It's like if every day was summer.
It's windy. I don't want to be out here ski touring.
Yeah.
And then you get out on your bicycle and look at this is so refreshing to be on.
I love change. I love it. Some people hate winter. I fucking love winter. I love winter more than I love summer because I know it's gonna be gone right away.
Yeah.
Like no one likes to be cold, but I'm like, we get to experience all these different seasonal changes. Like, that might not be here in 20 years.
That's true.
And also, it's not going to last forever. Like, nothing is permanent. Oh. You get your brain wrapped around that where it's like, oh, this is miserable. I remember, like, we did that Exodus project, which was an absolute disaster. Yeah. But we were camping, like, minus 20 in a tent, like a shitty tent. And, like, I think there was only a couple of us that, like, actually spent the night in there. But I was like, I'm not leaving this tent. I don't care if my fucking feet freeze off. I'm not leaving this tent because I want to have this experience of being like, this is the most uncomfortable I've ever been, but we're still here.
Yeah, and I've never heard you guys actually talk negative about that trip.
Everyone I think has had like a really rad experience from like it was a shit show. Like everything went wrong. Everything could have gone wrong. Pretty much went wrong.
It was the greatest disaster.
Totally, but we all had this like weird. It was just the goal initially. Is like, let's see how crazy this can get.
Yeah.
And it got crazy, and it was not a good idea. But anyways, nobody died, luckily. But it was also
your feet are still on.
Yeah, like everyone's alive and still talking to each other for the most part. But it was like this experience that we had, and then we get on top of the glacier, and this like the clouds part, and like everyone had a pretty good day up there, and we're like, man, this is all that stress and all that bullshit to get to this moment is like. Even though we only had like 20 good turns, maybe. It's like, man, this was like a pretty fucking rad experience.
Yeah.
And people push themselves to the point where it's like Arthur, our photographer, the guy's from Anguilla. He has never seen snow. We brought him to the top of a mountain, and he was like, I don't know how I'm going to live. Like, through the night. Or you just come here, man, I'll just cuddle you. Like, you got to keep your body heated. He's like, I think I'm going to die. And like that dude pushed himself to like a level that I've never seen a human push himself that hard. And I've been in like professional road racing where it's like that's the name of the game. You should taste your own blood. And Arthur was like, man, to this day I've never experienced that level of discomfort, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. That to me means the world to me.
Right.
Like, man, you had an experience that we created that you'll never forget. Although it was uncomfortable, you'll have that to look back on it as perspective of like anything else that happens like really negatively physical in your life. Yeah. And you have that as like your plateau. It's like, well, yeah, I gotta walk. My car died or whatever. It's like, dude, that means fuck all. Yeah. That time you almost died in the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
In like minus 20, sleeping in a tent, and how miserable that was. He goes, yeah, it's really not that big a deal.
There was even a time as a kid at Raymond, like we know the windstorms that ripped through there, right? Windstorm comes through, it's blowing all the tents like 3 farm fields down and stuff. We're sitting in our tent, it's completely pancaked and whatnot.
Yeah.
Terrified as a little kid. Now when a windstorm rips through, it's like, oh, it's fine. Like, just we'll get through it. It's no big deal. That's the most minor level of what you're talking about, but people just need to experience that, like...
You gotta experience some discomfort, man.
That discomfort of, like, I don't enjoy being here, but the next time you might enjoy it a little more. It's not a big deal. It's whatever, and you find that you love camping now, and...
Oh, dude, I love pushing that limit where it's just like, oh, this is going to suck. But also it's like you get off on it almost.
It almost gives me a little bit of excitement.
When your balls start tingling, it's like, woo!
When I was working in the shop and like something went wrong and like the cranes aren't working and we're going to have to stay late.
Chaos is about to ensue.
We got to figure out how to fix these cranes. Like that give me like, oh yeah, give me like a little jolt of energy. Where I'm like, okay, yeah, like I have some purpose now and I know how to fix this and I've done it before, so I know how to figure it out.
Yeah.
Do you guys find you love storms?
I love it.
Like a big ass storm. You're like,
I love
oh,
it.
here we go.
There's
Gives you a
times where
little
I
jolt of
wanna
energy.
do
Yeah.
that.
We had this huge tornado touchdown at the ranch this summer, like a fucking big bastard. And I was standing on the yard trying to take a picture of it. I'm like, you probably go inside. And like 10 seconds after I said that, there's like a tree getting lifted out of the ground. I'm like, yeah, this is not gonna be good. Like everyone get in the basement, like we're hiding in actually hiding in the house, just like holy shit. And then I'm like, man, why do I like this so much? Like this is kind of twisted, but it's because there's like, it's out of your control, and then you have like a problem and a big challenge you get to face, but that's all that's in front of you. They talk about the same thing with fear. It's like, now that you've been through some shit in your life, you know this is like, okay, whatever happens here, now we gotta deal with it.
Right.
All the other problems in your life no longer exist.
Well, and
It's
like
the coolest feeling ever.
you also probably learn how to channel that fear into
Like excitement.
that productive excitement too, of like, okay, we got this big ass tornado coming. Make sure that there's nothing that's gonna blow through the windows.
Yeah,
on
get
the
out,
house
get
here.
away from the windows, get to the basement.
Get in the basement. Make sure we're safe, secured, and then next things.
Yeah.
You start running through your checklist of
100% you do.
here's how we succeed in these fearful moments. And
Yep.
what do they say? What's the number one way to get out of any emergency situation? Remain calm.
Yeah.
Pretty hard to remain calm when you're fucking just stricken with fear the whole time. Like,
Dude, it's a wild experience.
so if you've never experienced true fear,
Yeah.
how do you know how to channel fear into something more?
I like chasing it now because it's like to like a reasonable level where you're like, okay, this could. You don't want to do anything that's like exponentially bad, putting other people at risk. But it's like, again, until you've experienced that enough times, you can just override it and like figure it out. You're gonna be crippled by it.
Yeah.
That's not a fun way to live, I don't think.
No.
Well, yeah. Have any of you guys read Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life? You read it?
Yep.
That's like all he talks about, right? It's like
It's a hard book to read though.
it's very. I had
He's
to read
too
it, like,
intelligent for me.
I'm reading it again.
Yeah,
It's
you gotta read it
I
like
read
7
each
times, 'cause, like,
paragraph
I don't get it.
twice, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, it's so the main thing he talks about is like order and chaos, right? The yin
Yep.
and the yang.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
like what gives you meaning in life.
And the lobster.
Yeah, the lobster too. Yeah, but it's like it's very hard to read. But like I would recommend anyone read, or maybe the audiobook may be a little easier to digest. But
Yeah, his literature is he's so intelligent. It's like it's hard for anybody to follow unless you're at that like IQ level, which clearly I'm not. But
no,
maybe
I
you
don't
are.
think any of us are.
But I think you got to do what you said with a book like that. Like, you got to read the paragraph
Yeah.
twice. You almost got to grab a pencil out, circle a few
Yeah.
like highlight points in it, kind of break them down a bit.
I try to dumb it down.
Yeah.
Or watch his lectures on YouTube.
Yeah, or him on Joe Rogan is great because like Joe Rogan's like the perfect guy to like dumb it down.
And it's not like he's never been through some shit. Even recently, he's been through a shit
Right.
ton of stress and like
Totally.
really bad anxiety and all this stuff. Like he's not like he's perfect. He just like he's found a way to battle through it. And like he's a hyper intelligent person that's still has pain and suffering and all this other shit that everyone else feels. Again, your problems are not special.
No.
Mhm.
They're your problems. They're not special.
Yeah.
They're just a
There's a way
problem.
to fix it.
Yeah.
There is.
I think everyone should read that book, even if it takes them 3 times to read it, because it's like anyone can take a lot out of that book.
Yeah, I totally agree, man.
Shit. People just need to read more books in general.
I think so,
you
too.
know, like,
Get
there's
off
a
your
lot
phone
of
and read a
bad
book.
books out there too, just like there's a lot of bad information on the internet.
Oh,
but,
for sure there is.
Like, how much more intelligent do you feel after reading that
Oh
book?
man, I feel great. Even just like my ego is a little pumped up.
You're like, I read a page.
Yeah.
Holy shit, I can do this.
Yeah, you know what I did last
you
night?
see,
I
there's
read
just
instead of watching
chapter
TV.
2 right
Yeah.
there.
You get a little like couple pages, like, damn right, I did that.
Well, it feels good too, right? To like,
And it wasn't
I
a
feel like
picture book.
It's much more productive to like. It's what I find is like reading instead of watching TV from like 9 to 10 o'clock at night. Just read a book for an hour.
Yeah.
Way more productive. You're gonna
Yeah.
learn something. Like there's.
Well, that's where I go back to that like thing I was talking about earlier with the I don't have enough time to read a book.
Right.
I don't. Well, shit. How much TV do you watch? How much time you're on your
Oh,
phone?
but I need
How
to
much time you-
unwind. I need to
Right, like-
unwind at the end of the night, right? Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
And
sure,
fair enough, if
yes,
you have to,
do,
whatever.
But let's take your 2 hours of TV watching, bring it down to an hour, read a book for the other
There you
hour.
go.
Yep.
Like, you're still unwinding for an hour.
audiobooks. Read an audiobook on your drive to work.
Yeah, like,
Yep.
and the whole unwinding thing. Like, I get that. I say that. I use that excuse in my own life, and that's all it is an excuse, really. Like, oh, I need to unwind. I had a tough day. I'm just gonna like chill out tonight, and I don't want to do like the
Yeah.
house chores and the life stuff,
Yeah.
right? Well, then you're just even further behind the next day.
Yeah.
And then you procrastinate because you're scared of what the
Scared of
result
what
of
might
being
happen,
behind
yeah.
was, right?
Totally.
Like, all the things we've talked about, of all the negative things we've talked about tonight, to me are just a circle. You bounce from fear to your ego to your all the other things we've talked about, I can't even remember. Shit, of course.
It's been a bouncing around podcast right here.
This is good though.
But I find you just circulate in that little puddle of negativity unless you can.
You find the things in your brain that are just like triggers, and you just keep going around and around and around.
Yeah.
So you branch off of them.
Yeah.
Then you develop a new pattern of habits.
Yeah.
That's what life is, man. I tell people like that. You see people like that are having really bad like anxiety, or like they're really struggling with like the patterns that they're in.
Yeah.
Like I know a couple of my really good friends have jobs they fucking hate. Yeah. Like their day to day is just shit. Like the fact you're living for 2 days a week is the problem. The problem isn't your job. The problem isn't what your circumstances are. The problem is that you've decided to be like, this is all I'm good at. This is all I want to do. Like, say you have like 60 years of work ahead of you, 50 years of work ahead of you. I don't know about you guys, but that's a fucking overwhelming amount of time to do something you don't like to do.
Yeah.
We can't even comprehend what that number means at this stage in life.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like us, yeah. But like, imagine someone who's like 85.
Yeah.
Like at the end of their life, and they're going like,
fuck.
I did that
what
fucking
did
job
do?
I fucking hated, man. I sat in that fucking desk my whole fucking life. Or like you know, or whatever it is. Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore. Not that I ever really did it, but I'm like, nope. Why? Like, at what point does materialistic bullshit and money override your like human level of consciousness where you're like, I am enjoying just being here?
Yeah.
Like, isn't that crazy?
I know exactly what you're saying. I've been there.
We've all been there, but it's like the point where I'm like, I don't care. If I don't fucking ever have a pension, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, unless I have kids that I need to support, which not that I know of anyway. But it's like that's like prison to me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this thing that I fucking hate for like 8, 9 hours a day, so I can go watch Netflix for like 3 or 4 and go to sleep and do it all over again.
Well, and when you hate 8 or 9 hours of your day in your life, you're probably gonna hate that last 4 as well.
You're just gonna be thinking about all that
you're
shit
gonna be
all
like,
day,
fuck,
right?
I gotta get up and do this again.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm like, I've never ever done that. I'm like, I would rather, when I started migration, I was like, I would rather live in my car where I had no fucking money, or like sleep on people's couches, or like rent a shit house that had like no running water, before I would ever like pay the man and like just work for like be a slave basically. Like I'm never gonna do that.
Yeah. See, I think a lot of people get trapped in not being able to live that lifestyle.
It's because fear-based. That's what we're getting back to.
It's fear-based, and then they also have, maybe a kid came along too early.
Totally.
They end up
life changes for a lot of people quickly.
But again, like, how many times is that an excuse, right? Like, okay, yes, you have another life you got to take care of. You got to kind of put yours on the back burner here a little bit. But what benefit is it doing to that other life if your life's no good? Because you can't pass on any real quality of life to that next person.
Yeah,
if
that's for me. I was lucky as I had my mom. Like, hats off to her. Young single mother was like, I am not fucking allowing my kids to experience what she experienced, and allowed us to travel and experience all these different. It's like, if you want to do this for a career, there's no fucking financial gain coming from us. If this is what you want to do, you have to work your ass off, and you're gonna have to sacrifice everything else to do this. So you make the choice. It's like, that's what was taught from my brother and I from a very, very young age, and we're very, very fortunate to have that lesson. It's like, don't take in all the bullshit of like, you're supposed to drive this kind of car, you're supposed to have this kind of house, you're supposed to have this kind of girlfriend, you're supposed to have kids at 25, or whatever the fuck it is. Yeah. Like, at what point did someone tell you that is like the way your life is supposed to be?
Yeah, who told you that?
Like, who are they to tell you how you're supposed to live your life? Fuck that shit. Nope. Who cares if you drive a shitty? I drive the same shitty car that I had when I was 17. The bank doesn't own me.
Yeah.
And if I need a place to sleep, I can sleep in that car. Like, I don't have bombs blowing up over my fucking head.
Yeah. Well, and again,
like
it goes back to, you've probably made more connections in your lifetime where You don't need to sleep in your car because you could just call up somebody you know.
What? That's the other thing. It's like I have amazing friends who are like, and I don't want to do that, but it's like if I had to.
Yeah, if you had to.
Totally.
Right? And versus somebody who's stuck in their own little bubble and their own negativity, their own job, and then they end up with a hard spot where they got to sleep in their car for a night. They got nobody like around them supporting them either because they were just
and they have no real like fucking awesome experiences. Like I slept in my car for 6 months starting this company, but I had a fucking awesome time. Like it was crazy, but it was also sick.
Yeah.
You know how many memories I had doing that? Even in California, I was staying at your place, and I was just like, I have a bed to sleep in tonight, but I'm like, I kind of like just being a dirtbag. You remember that?
Yeah.
I'm parked in Jared's driveway, this like nice ass house. I'm like, I'm gonna sleep in my car tonight. What the hell's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know, man. You get on this, like, you start rolling.
You like the chaos.
It's just the beautiful chaos, man.
Yeah, the beautiful chaos.
Like, I got really nothing. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. But society tells you, the fuck you didn't sleep in your car. Like, well, I wanted this quality of life 3 years down the road from now, rather than working at this place for somebody else that I don't know and doing the same shit every day, sitting in a cubicle and watching my life
See, the big
pass by.
difference I hear out of you is, like, you weren't just sleeping in your car as a place to sleep. You were sleeping in your car to better your life, in other aspects, right? Like,
I knew it's like a sacrifice that I'm making, but also I'm like, I'm not gonna starve to death tonight. Like I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I got money in the bank to go to A&W if I have to. Like it's not that big a deal.
But like there's people who start sleeping in their car and just get wrapped into I have no place to go, so I'm just gonna sleep in my car, stay in it all day, not make any money, not try to strive to be any better because life's got me down. I'm just gonna get kicked down again and kicked down again and kicked, But you, it's like, all right, I got, no house to sleep in, big whoop. I'm gonna go start a training company.
Yeah.
It just
It's kind of had that weird realization where I was like in a really shitty spot in my life where I'm like, the fuck do I want to do after racing? Like actually, not like what everyone else is telling me to do. It's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, nothing else comes to mind but this. And it's been in my mind for a long time. I'm like, fuck it. And all the credit for that goes to my brother and my cousin Warren. Yeah. They're like, this is what you want to do? All right, let's get this going. Yeah. You just got to start it. Warren, he's always been the guy that's told me, he's like, the only way through the shit, or the only way forward through the shit is like right through it. So just get through the really rough part and start it, and then it just roll. And don't worry about all the shit that hasn't happened yet. Like, don't worry about 5 years down the road what your mom's gonna think or what your like. Who cares? That's not their life. This is your life.
When you were going through high school and like people would ask you, "What do you want to do with your life?" Did you have something like migration in your mind already, or is that something?
No. It was no. When I was in high school, it's probably. I was so dedicated to racing. I was such a late bloomer in everything. I'm still a late bloomer in everything I do. But like. In high school, I was like a total like loner, like very shy, very unconfident. Just like, no, I'm just gonna. I knew I had some like a little bit of talent in endurance sports, and I was also playing hockey at the same time. But I was like a runt. Like I didn't grow till I was in grade 12.
Okay.
I was like 5'7" till I was in grade 11. Then I was 6'4" that next summer.
I was gonna say you grew a lot then.
And it was like, what the hell is going on? So it was like I was in a very awkward stage at a later time than a lot of my peers. So I was like, weird like conundrum. Like, do I keep playing hockey or do I like go bike racing?
Right.
And then I went into bike racing, and it was just like it was just a weird trickle of events. It was like, oh, this is the one I picked. Now it's like fucking hell bent for like this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
There you go, hell bent.
Hell bent.
This is what I'm choosing to do now, and like here's where we're going. And I didn't give a fuck about school. I didn't give a shit about university at that point or anything.
Yeah.
And then once I got through the first couple years of racing, and we went to Europe, and we were getting our asses whipped. Like to the point where I was like, what the fuck did I do? Like, why am I here? Like, this is not fun. I hate this. And I talked to like my buddy Evan there. We talk about this all the time. It's like, those are like our pivotal moments in our lives where we're like, I've never been so miserable physically. It's like, we're dying, but it's like, man, I'm racing our bike like 4 or 5 days a week. Pissing rain in Belgium and like living in these shitty motels and just like fucking I hate this. Like I don't want to do this anymore. Then you come home and you like go back to school and you're like, man, we were like racing our bikes around the world.
Yeah.
Getting paid and like what the fuck did we have to bitch about? And then you go back after that and you're like, okay, this is actually what I want to do. And then migration started.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
See, I
That's
think
how
the
the whole
struggle
thing
for a
started.
lot of people is, like, they get asked that question, what do you want to do? Too young.
Yeah, that's the problem with
How
the
are you
whole
supposed to-
society, right?
You're
in
like
grade,
18. How the fuck are you supposed to know it? I don't fucking know.
you're supposed to know in grade 9 what you want to do, right? Like, oh, hey, what do you want to take in high school to set you up for your career? And
they like
whatever the hell
they put you
wanna
through
do,
high school.
right?
Okay, you need this math and this science to get into like these 4 different things. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm gonna have for lunch.
Yeah.
And you asking me like what I want to do the rest of my life? Like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not a huge fan of our education system either.
No, I don't think anyone is.
It's like, well, you get these kids that are like geniuses at, music or arts, or they're like unbelievable at math, or they're unbelievable at like geography. But we're gonna make you do shit that you hate and you suck at, and make you feel like a fucking idiot. Then you're gonna end up like running a company like Microsoft or something. Like, look at Elon Musk's approach to life.
Yeah.
It's like, what? And I totally agree with him because he's like, he's way smarter than me, so I trust him.
Yeah.
He might also be an alien, but it's like, well, I don't really care if you have a college degree. I'm like, most of the people that I know that I really trust and like really like think are intelligent, a lot of them don't have degrees or like.
Oh yeah, a lot of people I know don't have degrees, college degrees,
And it's
university
like,
degrees.
I totally believe that you could do whatever the hell you want to do.
Yeah.
Who the fuck's to say like, oh, you took schooling in a lot of the classes you're going to take in university are absolute bullshit of what you actually want to do.
Yeah.
Well,
Like, who the fuck cares?
and one school will teach it this way, and the next school teaches it
Totally.
a different way.
Yeah.
So which one's the right way?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. They're
If you're a
both
young
gonna be
kid, you gotta
right.
learn how to read and write and like do like basic
Yeah.
math. That's one thing, but like I'm talking like later on when you're like, what do you want to do? Like, I don't know. This person is clearly a genius at like astrophysicists later in life, but you made him do like all this gym classes. He's not a fucking athlete.
Yeah.
He's a fucking genius. Why does he
No.
have to do gym? He hates gym.
That
Or to get the
person needs-
jock who's like clearly not an
Yeah.
intellect.
You know,
Why the fuck does he have to do math or she has to do math when they're like gonna be in the NBA?
Yeah. The only argument I have against why would that neuroscientist have to learn gym? would
After
be like,
after the basics.
Yeah,
You gotta get the
that's
basics.
right. You got to learn physical fitness for your health,
Totally,
so
yeah.
you can survive, right? Because too many people are unhealthy in their lives, and they're miserable because of that.
That's a choice, though, man.
And then
At a
versus
certain point,
the
it's
jock,
like
right?
you
The
choose
jock
that.
needs to learn how to do math and stuff so he can do his taxes.
Yeah.
So he can
Well,
You hire an accountant for
manage
that.
his bank a little bit. You know,
You get a
those
really
kinds
good
of things.
accountant.
We need to understand the basics of those things.
Well, hold on. Maybe it's because what we were talking about earlier. You got to get diverse things from everywhere, right?
Diversification, man.
Exactly. No, totally though. Like
I totally agree with you.
maybe not when you're like really focusing on one thing. Like you're paying a whole lot of fucking money to go to university and focus on this one thing. You don't need to take this. What you had to take yoga in fucking business school? Like what the fuck is that?
Oh, dude, I took every yoga class I could, or like every swimming class, or like bullshit. Because I was like, I'm gonna get a 90 in this class.
I took
Like it's a
history
physical
of
thing.
rock
I'm like,
and
I have to
roll.
do. I have to
That's-
do that. I
that's
have to
badass,
read.
though.
Right?
That's cool.
Like, I got to take history of rock and roll in a business
Yeah, it's
class.
fucking
But then
dope.
you're
Like,
paying
that's
a lot of
awesome.
money for that, though,
Paying
right?
a lot of money to go to
a lot of people can't
stupid
afford
class,
that.
But
But
you
like,
know, it was-
I took, what was the one class I took that I could not even understand why I was there. It was like the economics of sport, but it had nothing to do with sports. It was like, we have supply and demand of like goods and like services and trades.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, where's the sporting? Like, I want to do sports shit.
yeah.
I get the world runs on a different platform, but like, I thought this was sports. Nothing to do with sports. Nothing to do with it. Like, what?
But that's where I go back
At
to
what point did I need to learn this?
that thing I was talking about earlier. It's like, okay, you don't need to learn all of that. But
Yeah.
did you learn one thing out of it? Right? Maybe that class was
One thing
3
university will
months too
teach you
long.
is it'll teach you how to like, it'll teach you how to spell properly. Hopefully,
Yeah.
it'll teach you how to write properly.
Yeah.
Which I think goes a long way. Even when I type up emails now for clients, or like if I'm in a conversation with somebody and I'm having a text message, you know, not even a debate, like I'm having a conversation over text, and I read people who spell like there, and there, and they're all different.
Yeah.
Like they're all backwards or wrong.
Yeah.
Like one's like subjective, or one's like a person's belonging of like a there, like
Yeah.
A verb,
THEIR.
an
It's
adjective,
mine.
and a noun.
Totally. Like all these things that I'm like, man, I never even fucking would have thought of that if I didn't go to school. And
I
like
don't
being
know.
like, now I'm like, I almost like go, thank Christ I learned this. Because now I'm like, I can tell if I'm talking to someone who like understands the concept of like struggling through that process in university of like how to learn how to write properly.
The most effective class I took throughout all of my university, the only one I remember the most amount of stuff from, English 1000, like the very first fucking class you take. Or no, what was it called? It wasn't
English 100, bro.
It was writing 1000 or something like that. It was very
some basic,
You know,
you have an old crusty prof that was like in a wheelchair and
not
teaching.
Even she was young. I think she was still even in university. But
oh fuck, I didn't have that.
Here is how you write a clear, concise, cohesive, piece of language.
Yeah.
Right. That you're not going to confuse people. You don't got extra bullshit in there.
That's another thing. How to cut all the other shit out that nobody, like all the extra words, you condense it down to just what you want to say.
Yeah, and make sure what you're saying has something to it. Don't just say it to say it. Make sure, like, I got a point, and here's how I want to write it.
They make you argue, even if you disagree with the topic. It's like it could be on like types of dirt bike helmets.
Yeah.
And you're gonna say I like Troy Lee or I like Bell. And you disagree with one, but you have to pick the one you disagree with and just argue those points.
Yeah,
it teaches you how to do that.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like that, I'll even do at the dinner table when we're talking. I may not even agree with what I'm saying, but I'm just gonna play the devil's advocate.
He's that motherfucker that does that
just
shit.
to like get that conversation rolling, piss people off.
I do that too, though. I know.
Like, I'm on your side. Yeah. Like I am saying what you're saying outside of this dinner table.
I totally know what you mean.
But sitting here, I'm going to tell you, you're fucking wrong.
I do that with the Cowboys all the time with politics. I'm like, I totally agree with like where you're coming from, but I'm like, how about Trump? How about Trudeau though? Yeah. They're like, what the fuck did you just say? Like, let's see how crazy this is gonna get. Even though I don't agree, just to see what happens.
But that's how you'll find out that guy's got a thought behind him and not just spewing some bullshit.
It's the thing. It's like don't just react from anger, because like I've done that before lots. But it's like, what do you actually think here? Like, really?
Yeah.
Just you, and there's nobody else in the room that can defend you, or like you. There's no.
Put your
like,
phone away so you can't.
There's no herd. Well, they don't have phones. Those guys. These are old cowboys, man. They don't have phones.
Don't take somebody else's opinion and just.
Don't go with the herd mentality. Like, what do you actually think?
Yeah.
Like, behind closed doors, when no one's listening, what do you actually think?
Or is it, so you take that guy's opinion and you agree with it. Why do you agree with it? And don't just say the same thing.
Totally.
Why did you agree with that? Like, what part of it made you go, oh, yeah, I resonate with that, or this? Like, put some more thought behind something.
I always respect somebody that, even if they, are like, fuck, I know I'm going to get ridiculed for this, but this is really what I think. I'm like, hey, you stuck your neck out there?
Yeah.
I respect that.
Well, that's one of the biggest reasons I hate retweeting is you're just regurgitating somebody else's thought. Like all throughout life, we get told not to plagiarize, not to copy, not to steal, not to.
That's a good point, actually.
That's all we're doing on social media. Is
I actually never thought of that retweeting. I'm like, fuck, I'm not gonna retweet anymore.
Yeah, right. No, it's.
Whoa! What can you pull from this podcast? I'm never retweeting again.
I don't know. That's just the way I think. I'm like, well, people get upset that somebody stole something, intellectual property for somebody else. Well, retweeting the tweets.
And that's pretty fucking. That's actually pretty great. Like that's
good. You are giving them credit because their name is there and stuff, right? But people will just take and steal.
All you're doing is trying to get credit for yourself. For
that's right.
You're trying to I agree with this. Let's retweet it, right?
Whether it's my girlfriend does it all the time. I'm sure your girlfriend does too, and women you've met, they. All they do is.
What are you gonna cut for this podcast? Quotes, yeah, girlfriend, my wife is. All the women you met.
They post these inspirational things all the time.
Oh fuck!
It's all so great, but it's like.
What part of that do you actually remember?
That's right. Do you remember the quote you posted last week?
Yeah.
Guarantee you don't, because you didn't actually pull anything out of it. You just regurgitated the information.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and that's whether it's music or a podcast, we could sit here and regurgitate the same bullshit Joe is saying, and look like heroes, but that's not our thoughts.
Instead, we're gonna sit around this table for 3 hours and sound like a bunch of fucking idiots.
Honestly, though, this podcast we've done just now has been totally shit I've never even thought of, and shit I've said that I don't never even just came out of my mouth that I didn't even think of before. That's why I love this shit. It's good.
Yeah, what time? What? How long have we been going for here? Oh, Chris is getting
probably
old.
Been at least 2 hours, I think.
I couldn't even tell you.
Oh, 2:15.
Really?
2:15.
Shit, already.
And it feels like we just started.
Just cracked her loose here, man. Yeah, you guys gotta come out to the ranch. It'll set you back in time, and it'll make your psyche feel good. You're like, man, it's awesome. Yeah. Sit on a horse and just sit in the wind and fucking hate life for a bit, and you go, it's actually not so bad.
Yeah.
I heard this hilarious quote from one of the cowboys there. He goes, we're riding up this hill. Like, I don't even remember what time it was. It would have been like 8 or 9 in the morning, and it's just windier than fuck. And you're just like, it's cold, and you're miserable, and even the horses are like, God damn it. Mark goes, yeah. And this is how you become so fucking miserable, not even death will want you. I'm like, this is like actually kind of exactly where I want to be right now because, this sucks a lot, but it's also like not the worst thing ever.
No.
But he goes, this is just how you become tough, man. He's just like, most people don't experience this in a day-to-day life.
Well, I want to almost take it back a minute when you were talking about boredom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, like, so as a kid, you really hated boredom. Like, what can I do? Mom, I'm bored. Like, trying to come up with ways not to be bored. I almost cherish a little bit of boredom now.
Boredom is
right?
tight.
Like, I get boredom and then I go, what do I want to do? Like, this is opportunity for me now. Like,
here's like a woman in the bathroom. No, totally though. It's like it's a weird but the thing we all have cell phones, so it's like you're never really bored.
Yeah,
you're
just
by
like
yourself ever.
Well, that's like one thing I've noticed this year. Like, this is the first year I've always worked all year racing and, working. It's just been a total grind every year. This year, it's like, I kind of almost miss it a little bit, miss that grind. Like, I had a lot of fun this summer. It was a great time, but I almost kind of miss, like, I almost feel like I got a little bit soft by not, like, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but, like, I got a little bit soft maybe by, I feel like I maybe had it too easy because I've had it so much harder in the past where I've, like, had to work. I would literally fly to the race all weekend, fly home, go to work on Monday, work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, fly on Friday. And it's like,
he did grind like that.
I feel like that. I don't know. I don't know.
It's almost like a shock to your system because you're not used to it.
Yeah, like now I feel like I had too much free time. I'm like, okay, I'm just driving to the races, and it feels like I'm not grinding.
But that's
enough.
the thing. That's just your ego kicking in and going like, oh, like probably your dad or like whoever the hell was your biggest influence in your life told you like you got to work your ass off all the time. It's like, well, that's kind of bullshit.
And like you may not think you did, but as a guy who was sitting there kind of from the outside, every day I showed up or I was there, you were grinding every day, kind of all day long. Yeah, there'd be a few minutes of hanging out, chilling or whatever, just sitting, relaxing.
Yeah.
You get that with everything you do. Yeah. But, I mean, I think you still did a lot of grinding out there.
That's true.
Just wasn't the same type of grind.
Okay, so hold on.
You didn't hate grinding for it. Yeah. It was like you almost enjoyed what was coming with the grind.
Maybe I almost felt guilty for what I was enjoying it. Maybe that's maybe what it was. But you know who Matt McDuff is? I bet you know who he is.
I saw him probably.
He has a podcast, like a lot like this.
Oh,
podcast.
actually, Tyler was on it, right?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I just like
that might be the reason why I know because he told me he's like, "I was on this podcast. Like, you should watch."
He probably
this one,
was
or listen to this one.
But he only has like 13 episodes or something.
Is he a BMX dude before?
I don't know, but he got really fucked up one time and like almost.
It's definitely the same guy for sure. It might not be BMX for the people.
Yeah, mountain bike. He might be a BMX guy. I'm not sure, but I'd listened like Hayden.
I'm pretty sure I heard that. I heard Tyler's podcast though.
Yeah, Hayden told me about his podcast, so I checked it out, and he's like, check out this podcast with this one guy. He's like he's a weird guy. He's like, it's a hard podcast to listen to because this guy is like really weird and like talks really weird. But he talks about like
I'm pretty weird too.
Different sides of the ego. So you have a different side of the ego where like one side of the ego is like telling you you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Like all the negative side of the ego, and then you have all the positive side of the ego. So he talks about it in. So you have a key. The black key is the negative side of the ego, and then you have the other side of the key, or a different key that is telling you about the positive side of the ego, which is like, oh, you're the shit, all this stuff, you're this good, this and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So both of those are toxic.
Yep.
All right.
So you got to strip away both of these egos, and you got to use this key that is just your true self. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. I don't know. I'm butchering it, but I don't know where I was going with that. But
it makes sense, though, man.
Yeah. Well, and like, yeah, there again, we got to go back to finding that balance or equilibrium of using. You can't just focus on the negative, but sure, you can pull out a building block from a negative, and then you can't let yourself get too much hubris.
The negative side's easy.
I'm the shit. I'm too good, but you got to have a little bit of that to succeed too, right?
Yeah.
Sure you do. But like
you got to show up to the start line.
the negative side is easy.
Shot,
It's easy.
The negative side's easy to fall back
Super
on.
easy to
It's
fall
like,
back.
yeah, you can easily look at all your failures and be like, yeah,
We can look at 5 fucking things that 10 things that we did in this podcast. We're like, fuck, we should have done that. Like that was like a stupid way to like, or whatever the hell we talked about. It's like that wasn't a cohesive like flow. It's like, well, why would you focus on that?
Yeah.
That's not gonna help you go forward.
Yeah.
But until you know the patterns of like what your brain's gonna do, and like be like, you gotta go easy on yourself sometimes.
yeah,
You can't just be like, I'm a fucking piece of shit all the time, because then you're gonna believe that.
Yeah.
Well, like most people are not.
Well,
Most people think that they are, but they're not.
and let's say we're talking about that sentence that we couldn't make flow or cohesive or whatever, and you're thinking everybody, oh, what an idiot, he can't talk right. When the reality of the situation is, one person may think that.
Yeah.
10 people didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
You'd be
One
amazed at how
person's going-
seldom people thought
Yeah.
when you actually got to know what they were really thinking.
Yeah. One person says, wow, that was really good. One person says, wow, that was complete shit. And then 10 people didn't even register to
And you
it.
hear yourself
So-
talking like I sound like an idiot, but you're also like, well, I was thinking and trying to think on my feet and like come up with a sentence. It's like it's not an easy thing to do.
no,
Yeah.
You think like I'm a fucking idiot because I didn't come up with this, even though in my head I think I'm smart.
What's number one fear of people? It's not death. It's public speaking.
Yeah.
Right?
It's judgment, yeah.
That's the number one thing. So like when people are judging other people for doing something that's, terrifying or scary, and we don't even have to be talking about public speaking. Let's talk about whatever, getting on a bike or going to school for the first day, right? Like
Yeah, scary.
that same level of fear and judgment is there.
yeah.
It's the first time we do anything for the first time.
Have you ever listened to one of these podcasts back and been like, man, I should just shut the fuck up and not talk at all? 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm
but
an
then it's
idiot."
like-
that's just
Yeah.
your ego.
But how
right?
many times you have just a regular conversation with no people watching, no headphones on, and like microphones, where you're just like, I should just shut up here and just listen because I'm just like talking over this person.
Yeah.
This happened 3 or 4 times in this podcast where I'm like, I'm probably talking over you and you and you. I'm like, just shut up, man.
No, it's good though. Like from the outside, it's good, right?
Yeah, for sure it is.
Yeah.
That's the only way to. That's how humans are, man. We all think that shit, and then you can go. We're actually on all that, not that much different. It's
Well,
like,
that's what I was
Really?
just gonna say. It's crazy to think how like you think you're the only one who's like,
No,
oh,
everyone's
man,
thinking that shit.
Everybody's thinking the same thing about themselves.
it's
Like,
same with self. That comes down to self confidence with
you're
everybody.
not special.
You're
right?
not special. Everyone thinks that they suck because everyone sucks at shit.
Yeah.
But like, if you can, that's why I always find it now. Like we talk about the public speaking thing. I fucking hated public speaking in high school.
Yeah.
And then I remember this one pivotal moment in my life where I was like, what is this helping? Like, what am I scared of? Like, going to university, I'm like, I have to do this huge presentation in front of like 500 students.
Yeah.
Like, and they all have to do the same thing to us. None of us are listening to what they're saying. We don't give a shit.
Huh.
We're on our phones. We're fucking talking to whoever we're with. We don't give a fuck. So when I go up there, I'm like, nobody's going to actually give a shit about this. And then it just like switched. I'm like, I actually don't care anymore.
Yeah. And the only person who actually gives a shit about what you're saying is so that he can go to the teacher afterwards and be like, well, my grade should be better because of what he said,
Or the prof that's like grading you that's also like getting paid a ridiculous amount of money to like
Yeah.
teach you some bullshit. It's like,
Yeah.
it was like an account, or it was like a marketing class for like some business class that it had nothing to do with my degree. But it was like, I got to get through this shit. So
Yeah.
here we go. And I have one good friend who is absolutely petrified of public speaking to the point where he's like not graduating because he like won't take this class. I'm like, dude, I feel so bad for him because I know how anxious he is. But I'm like,
Yeah.
there's nothing. Everyone loves this guy to the point where it's like everyone that I know is best friends with this guy. So when he goes up to public speaker, everyone's gonna be actually attentive because they're like, we love this dude. And now he's like, they're all fucking looking at me and they all want to know what I gotta say, and I'm fucking freaking out. It's like, man, how did we rewire that psychology of being like, people actually want to know what you have to say, man, not because they hate you, because they actually are like interested in you. Then you can have confidence based on like, oh, actually, maybe I'm not a complete idiot or whatever he's thinking.
Well, and that goes back to like ego. You got to believe what you're talking about too. You got to have the ego in yourself.
Well, yeah, for sure you do.
Even if sometimes what you're saying is bullshit, which tonight 99% of what I say is bullshit, but you got to have the confidence in what you're saying and believe yourself a little bit too. And then other people are going to listen to you. And they may not be listening to you to agree with you or anything like that, but hey, they're listening.
Well, even if it's like you're not super confident in what you're saying, at least you engage in the conversation. You tried.
Yeah.
It's like, fair enough.
Yeah. Like, how exciting would a podcast be if
we knew everything?
How about the weather?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
yeah, like. So.
But no, it's the mind is a fucked up thing. But it's also like super cool because there's really no end to what it can do or what you can think or what you can and can't do and all the rabbit holes you can go down. And so it's like we'll never figure it out.
So you talk about when we're physically training, pushing the body to its limits and stuff, right? Like we think we know the limits of the body, which the body might be able to go further than what we're pushing it to these days even, right? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not behind all that stuff. But the mind for sure. We have no idea how far you can push
there's a lot of the mind that I'm sure we haven't tapped into.
Like,
but the body is like, if you look at human beings from an evolutionary perspective and where we're at, like if you look at, 100 years ago, like the running times or like the times in a lot of sports are like physical capability hasn't improved drastically.
Right.
There's little changes in science, obviously, that are going to develop year to year, but it's like you're pretty much getting the hierarchy of humans every year, and it'll change like very, very small amounts.
Yeah.
When you see the increases in technology, in technology and advancements in like, artificial intelligence and how robotics have changed and how, even like people with disabilities, like who have been paralyzed, there's like people who are pretty much able-bodied again due to technology. So it's like we're in a weird crossroads here where it's like eventually humans and technology are just going to coexist and just be like a symbiote.
Yeah.
Which is a fucked up thing to think about, man. But it's like it's here already.
Wow.
But in terms of like what the mind could do, to answer your question, I guess is there's a lot that's untapped. A lot.
Yeah. Have you guys seen what's that rock climbing movie? Not the free climb or free solo. The other one. Have you seen it yet? Just watched it the other day. I'm gonna just look it up.
Free. Well, I've seen the free solo one with the Alex.
Not that one. This other one. It's nuts.
Meru?
No.
Meru's pretty crazy.
No, I haven't seen either.
There's the thing is that once you overcome that initial fear thing in the mind, and then you can probably grow addicted to like physical pain, and like you see some of these like crazy expeditions they're doing in these like really high Himalayan pack trips and like expeditions. Yeah. It's like fuck. That is like next level suffering.
Yeah.
Like your fucking hands and your feet are falling off for frostbite. And it's like, what's the point of that? I don't want to ever do that. I like to think I'm a bit of a masochist where I can like push myself to the point where I'm like, I'm very uncomfortable here a lot of the time, but I don't want to lose my hands and my feet. I don't want to do that. Yeah. But some people are like, damn, it's worth it.
The Dawn Wall.
Oh yeah, that's the one.
I'm not going to spoil it.
No, I've seen that.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone else who's listening, but like
watch that documentary. The Dawn Wall.
This guy loses his finger and he climbs the Dawn Wall in Yosemite. It's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Watch that and watch Meru if you want to see like what human beings, what our minds are capable of pushing ourselves through. It's like almost exponential. Yeah. And you see it with a lot of motocross guys, like even with Tanner Ward this year. It's like he finally got that win that he'd been trying to get for so long, and now you're gonna see like a confidence level boost in him coming in the next years. Yeah. Where it's like, okay. He's got all the physical traits that you need to be a champ. He's just like he's a stud in terms of like genetics. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's like, how do we rewire his mind? Not rewire it. So that's the wrong term. Sorry, not rewire it. How do we develop his confidence and his ability to overcome the pressures of racing, the pressures of his life, and the pressures of all this other stuff to perform in the day when you really need it to matter?
Yeah. So I think that kind of goes back to like what you were talking about at the start of it with base, right? Like a lot of people would look at Tanner and go, "Well, he didn't win a championship. He wasn't, doing all that this year." Well, he's building a base for next year or the year after or 5 years from now where solid season, he had some struggles, had some growth. Next year it can be a little more of this. Like
we're always looking for consistency.
Versus that, man, why can't I think of the word we were using? That instant gratification.
Yeah.
Like nobody may look at him and think there was any, success or instant gratification in his program this year, but then you really start looking at all the little wins and stuff and what that's going to build on for the next year with
he's on a new bike too, and like just learning the new team and learning a new system, and like he's starting to mature into a man now, and like he's got all this other shit going on in his life that none of us know about, which is like good.
Yeah.
Like that's like all things you're gonna have to learn, and he's I got nothing but good things to say about that kid. He's a true, like, genuinely just a kind, caring, dedicated individual to his craft, and I have nothing but good things to say about that kid. Yeah. It's really cool to see his progression. Just happy to be working with him.
Yeah. Who's one of the athletes you worked with this last year who you kind of saw the most progression or improvement out of? I know that's hard to do as a
and there's like honestly a lot of them. It's
or who are you most I shouldn't say impressed with, but like maybe an athlete in each category, mental, physical, and then put it all together.
Well, this year with COVID, it's been a challenge because obviously we're not allowed to races, so it's like you're not allowed to even have the gym space. So it's like you're doing a lot of this stuff online and you're trying to see the progression. But the local kids in Alberta, especially the amateur kids, the communication that I've had with them, and they see the progression, they see the work ethic that they're putting in. It's like second to none from all the other athletes I've trained. So that's like a really, and at a time where they could say, screw this, I'm not going to do this.
Here's all these.
There's no races coming
Here's
out.
some bullshit report. Like, no, they're actually like holding themselves accountable. Like, I want to improve with this. So,
sorry,
to put me on the spot with that, it's like I couldn't pick just one.
Oh, of course not. Yeah,
but it's been cool with COVID to see the way that everyone has adapted in a positive manner rather than a negative. It was easy to get negative right away.
Yes.
Super easy. Yeah. And nobody did. Well, there's no one that I train now that's on our roster that I could say that's been like falling at the wayside, has been like, I give up. No, not one. Which in previous 3 years I couldn't say before.
Yeah, and I think you hit the word there, accountability.
Yeah, right? It all comes down to that.
Any success, any improvement, any growth comes down to that accountability. Mm-hmm. Whether it's training,
we can't do the work for you. We can teach you the tools and show you the movements and show you the patterns of how we're going to train you there. I can't do the work for you.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people look at high school too, as high school failed them or whatever, is they looked at a teacher who didn't teach them enough or this or that.
Yep.
But where was your accountability to take yourself and like there's thousands of other kids that got to learn the same thing. Mm-hmm. Where was your accountability for learning it? Same with training, right? There's 1,000 other racers who are going to try to win the Pro Nationals this year. You got to hold yourself accountable to do it, because Brad's going to tell you what to do. But if you just tell Brad you're doing it, it's no good.
Well, and that's the thing is you can make up a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger, I was at that age too. At one point, and I was like, I don't really feel like fucking tell my coach really that I didn't want to ride today, so I just won't.
Well, it's like
it's always going to come out in the wash.
Hear the stories of like Sorby running his bike in the garage just to put the hour meter up, right? Where's Sorby today? Yeah, sure, he was fast for a couple of years and gone and out, never won a championship or nothing, even though he had the speed.
Yeah.
He had the talent, didn't hold himself accountable.
There's a whole slew of those guys.
Yeah. Well, the list
I grew up in an area and rode with a coach who was like Eastern European, hard as a motherfucker. Like his mentality was, I'm going to take a carton of eggs, throw it against a brick wall. Whatever ones don't break are the ones you keep. So it's like, you're 19 starting to work with this guy. And I'm like, not even really a man yet.
Yeah.
And I'm like riding ridiculous hours. And he would put us in like a corner of a basement. No TV, no headphones allowed. You ride and you face the wall for 5 hours.
Right.
Like I stare at a burgundy or a beige fucking piece of drywall until I went nuts. And he had to hold like a certain wattage or whatever he wanted us to do. That was our training for the winter. That was his mentality. He's like, if you crack this, you're a fucking piece of shit. So that's like, okay. And for whatever reason, that worked a little bit for me, because I was just like, well, yeah, you're just gonna become tough.
Yeah.
Because you have to. But also the other side of the training thing, he's like, the science behind what he did was also like very legit. But that is like almost torturous. Like, lock yourself in a room, ride your bike as hard as you can, till you like hallucinate, I guess, or like start thinking weird shit. Like, don't talk to anybody, don't have your phone on you, like none of that shit. And then, so then I started my own, avenue with migration. And it's like, I don't know if I want to do that with my athletes, but also like some of them I'm like, okay, you need to start putting the work in, and you need to be like, hold yourself accountable, because I'm not going to do this for you.
Yeah.
And some people just don't have it. That's fine. But you need to be honest with yourself and be like, I'm not cut out to do this shit. But don't do it for the image of like the sport. Do it because I really want to do this, and I want to prove to whatever it is you want to prove, yourself or your parents, like this is worth the money, this is worth the time, this is worth the effort. This is a huge sacrifice in your life. It's not just like a bullshit like, oh, I could ride my bike every now and then and have fun. Like, no, if you're dedicating yourself to this training program, put in the work. Don't be a fucking piece of shit and pretend that you're doing the work so you look cool for all the girls or whatever the hell it is. Put in the work, because you're going to regret it later in your life if you don't. That's my only advice, really going forward with this.
We talked about it earlier. I think we all regret certain things. And like I said, there's even those little things where, never would have been a pro hockey player looking back at it. Just didn't have the talent and the size and the this.
Some of it's genetic.
Probably could have made it work if with enough determination and skill. But man, I regret not just putting a little more into it.
Yeah.
Taking that one day and instead of like you said, just doing it for the image or whatever, being there.
Yeah.
Actually stare at the wall and grind. Like, don't just sit on the bike and pedal.
Well, and even going forward with life, like, his name was, well, I won't even say what his name was, but like, I disagreed heavily with that coach, and like, we had a bit of a blow up and like, not a great ending, but like, I learned so much later in life from him of like, just like mental fortitude and being like, okay, like, this is a shit time in your life. Remember when you were fucking riding your bike in a fucking basement, staring at a piece of drywall to train for a goal that was like months down the road you couldn't even see yet, but you knew this is where like what it took. You're just like, I'm just gonna go fucking through this shit to get to this point where I know I need to be. That teaches you something later in your life, whether that's in business or like whatever the avenue is that you decide to go into life. And more people need to experience that, as much as it sucks when you're younger, because it teaches you how to be resilient later in life. Because life is not going to be easy all the time. It's going to be really shitty sometimes.
Well, and that's why I'm a big proponent of pretty much everybody needs to get involved in some aspect of a sport.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
It doesn't have to be an extreme sport or whatever.
Yep.
Or get involved in something that's going to teach you those lessons that you need later on in your life. Like, you don't realize you're learning those things as a kid in those sports and programs and
team
stuff.
and individual.
Yes.
And individual, sorry. You can't just have like one or the other. You should do both from a very young age.
Again, diversify, as we've said probably 5,000 times now, right? Like, it teaches you more down. And, I'm saying that as a young person still.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
What am I going to say when
we don't know shit yet?
Yeah, what am I going to say when I'm 50, 60 years old, like my parents are, going, yeah, you don't know shit. Like, you probably think you know some shit.
Because we don't.
You don't know shit. And I'm going, oh, yeah, I've had all these life experiences so far.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they've taught me how to get to here, and then I'm still going to look back on those and, understand more about how I got to it, how you get further and things like that.
Yep.
That's why I think when you do get older, you understand, like, the hardships aren't as hard as you thought they were when you were 20.
It's always going to build on that, right?
Yeah, you just go.
It's like positivity builds on positivity, negativity will build on negativity. Yeah. But you have to go through that really shitty shit.
Build some resilience.
To build some resilience to go forward, or you're going to be a fucking worthless piece of shit trying to get through, whatever the hell life throws at you. Because there will be times in your life where you will wish you had some of that toughness younger, or when you were younger, because it's going to come to you regardless of how tough you are.
Yeah.
Like, how tough you're born is irrelevant. You need to develop those traits and those skills to progress in your life. Yeah. Regardless where you come from. So I think that it's like you said, it's very important for people to play sports, try different things, and you have to just learn how to be like, I need to go after this goal, although I fucking don't even know if this is what I really want to do. See it through. Like, don't just pull the plug and give up. See it through to the end.
Well,
And
that's
then you know.
where my parents talk about like university and hiring people, right? Like half the companies don't care what you went to university for. They honestly don't give a shit what you went to university for.
They just want to know
They just
you
want to
went.
see you can finish something.
Yeah.
You took 4 years, you finished something? All right, you can probably stick it out 4 years with us.
100%.
Oh, you only made it a year into your program, gave up, started another one, went a year, started another one. You ain't going to last 6 months here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Why would we want to hire somebody like that?
Yep.
Now, that's not to say that,
Let's say school's for everybody. It's not.
yeah, school's not for everybody, and maybe the people who didn't want to go through school go on and do things better themselves, and like everybody's different and can go do those different things. But there's definitely something to be said for finishing something that you found out wasn't necessarily for you halfway through or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's only another year. Finish it off. Like, don't quit in year 3.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you're only couple weeks into a program and you realize, holy shit, this is way wrong. Yeah, get out.
Yeah, well, you still
Don't
got time
spend 4
at that
years
point.
doing that.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
if you're in year 3, just you might as well finish it. What's
You
another
might as well
year?
get through it.
Right.
Or not even, but it also, though, like, if you fucking know, like, this is not for me,
Yeah.
and then you go do something else, and but then you stick through that for 20 years and you grind it out, then like, fair enough.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you better damn well, not that you better know, but it's like, if you're going to do that, if you're going to change that risk, because I've been that guy where I'm like, fuck this shit, I'm going to do this other thing my own way. You better stick it out, and like, you're going to have to live in your car or like eat ramen noodles for 6 months or whatever the hell it is to get to the goal where you're like, no, this is actually what I want, regardless of what everyone else says.
Yeah.
Resilience comes in many different forms. It's not just school or like this
yeah,
path. It's everything.
It's just one example.
It's
to
everything.
use, right? Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good way to sum up anything you need to know about life. You need to be resilient. You need to develop those neural pathways that allow you to be tough, but also have empathy for other people.
Yeah.
How to adapt.
Yeah.
Adapt, overcome,
Overachieve or whatever the hell that saying
Yeah.
is. Oh, man.
Yeah, that's good.
This has been great.
Deep.
Time we at?
I don't know, probably 2.5 hours.
2:40, I think.
What time of the night is it even?
I don't know.
That's 11 o'clock.
Oh, shit.
That was a good one.
We'll wrap it up, I think.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Good to go?
That's good. That was awesome.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Yeah,
Really
thanks for
appreciate it.
coming
That was fun.
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll do that again.
This is one of my favorite
yeah.
podcasts, I think,
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have you back on in a few weeks,
Yeah, to edit this one. Well, I said if you want to just talk training one time, we'll just talk.
We
that,
talked like quite a bit of everything, right?
Yeah. But we'll bring.
But
So
it
we
would
can
be
bring.
cool to like dive into some training stuff a
Like,
little more
really
specifically.
scientific.
Yeah, if people
Yeah.
You know.
like ask people if they want to know that stuff. Like
Well,
I'm happy to talk.
I was
about that.
thinking about this earlier. Like we should have really put something out earlier for like a Q&A, but
Yeah.
I didn't think of it.
Well, you're in town, not every day, but like fairly
Pretty
regularly,
like
right?
anytime you
let's
want,
figure it
I can drive in
Yeah.
for a day too and do it. And we can bring Corey in too.
Corey would be good.
Yeah, Corey's
Really
a really good guy to have on here because he's really knowledgeable on the strength side of things. And he's better at articulating like the process of it than I am.
Well, again, that's where having the diversity of both of you sitting there
There
would
you
be
go.
just perfect.
Yeah, he's just a wee little fella, but he's
He's got
He-
some fucking quads on him.
he's
though.
Quadzilla.
Quads.
Yeah. No, yeah, he'd be a good guest to have if you guys want to talk
I
just
think
training. We
he'd
can
be
do a
great,
Q&A. You
yeah.
can even do a live Q&A with us if
Yeah.
you want.
We should do live
Do a live
podcast one day.
podcast one of these days.
Let's do it.
Should do it. Well, now like we could do that live, no problem.
Oh.
We had no glitches.
You
no
guys have the
nothing.
technology. I got to piss
Yeah.
so
Okay, let's
bad
wrap
right
it
now,
up.
though.
Let's
I'm going to wrap this up.
Alright,
And
thanks.
thanks for having me, boys.
Yeah, thanks, Brad.
Yeah. It's good to finally be here.
See ya.